Welcome to 6.5 Live. It's a new thing, and yes, it's really live, like Saturday night, but different, because we're here at the Consumer Electronics Show, I said, looking at all the big changes in technology, and what a time to be here. Probably the biggest CES show ever, but certainly since the pandemic, when there's so much evolution in technology and lots to look at. And who better to help us look at that than Patrick Moorhead and Daniel Newman, who are on the show floor right now.
Thanks, Corey. Well, as you can see, CES is bursting with energy, but don't take my word for it. Let's check in with my special guests here, Daniel Newman and Patrick Moorhead, the leaders of 6.5 Media. How's CES going for you guys?
Yeah, it's great to be here. Of course, so much energy, Diana. Every year, this is a great way to start off the year. Technology, AI in focus, of course. We've got the automotive, the AI PC.
So Microsoft just recently announced the first Copilot key, which is a physical key on the keyboard that you'll be able to see here today that opens up the Copilot experience to the cloud directly in the desktop. If you take a look here, you'll see that we're able to do things like create generative AI. You'll see some prompts that we've used to create nice images of the Vegas Strip.
Pat, you were just on stage here at the Intel event talking about PCs and the revolution there. What'd you find out?
Yeah, so I think the biggest eye-opener for me was how the ecosystem came together. Literally on stage was 60% of the overall PC market. By the way, on the same stage together, competitors, and there were more competitors in the audience. That says a lot to me. I think what that says is a belief that investment into AI will raise the waterline to increase sales, increase profits, but as importantly, increasing and improving experiences for the end user on the consumer side, but also on the commercial side.
Did you call a super cycle?
I did call a super cycle.
So you called a super cycle, but hey, Diana, you've been here longer than we have, so what do you see?
That's right, I'm the real expert here, I guess. I'm just kidding, but take a look at this.
From wearables in health.
I'm ready for the runway.
It assists your lifting your legs, pushing off the ground.
To wearables for the metaverse. CES unveiled the opening event for the media, gave us an early look at what's trending in the industry.
What we do is we stream the hologram from iPhone to the VR headset. So if I put the headsets on, I can see you like you're right in front of me.
Not all these products will make it to market, but it's a fun way to see how the industry is tackling some of our biggest challenges.
So the motor is in the back wheel. So this enabled us to put a lot more batteries here.
From range anxiety that's emerging with the electrification of our cars and motorcycles.
So what do you think? How do I look?
You look cool.
Yeah? Watch out.
To the push to become more autonomous, even when the cars themselves lack the tech.
We are developing the autonomous driving parking robots. Just take off the vehicle and drop it, and then this robot's moving those vehicles to the appropriate parking lot.
So clearly a lot more to see as we roll through the show today, but luckily we have the outlet to do so. Dan and Pat, what do you have to say about 6.5 Live and the inaugural debut?
It's just a lot of fun to know that we can shift formats, we can continue to provide world-class analysis in a format that really meets, consumers, that meets enterprises where they are, which is more interactive, fast, meaningful, thoughtful content, and of course, having you here is always an added bonus.
Oh, thank you. Well, Pat, what do you have to say about me? No, I'm just kidding.
Exactly. No, hey, let's just talk about Dana. No, listen, the broadening of the talent base is super important. 6.5 started off with Dan and I, and then now it's 5 amazing talent, including yourself. So super excited about that, most excited about that.
Well, it's clearly a lot more to see here, so stay tuned for more coverage.
All right, welcome back to 6.5 Live. We're here at the Consumer Electronics Show 2024, an exciting time to be here. I'm Corey Johnson, and I'm joined by some people who know a little bit about technology with a really interesting look at what's happening here at CES. Joining me, Keith Townsend is here, Lisa Martin, and Dave Nicholson, all from Futurum. We're all here with Futurum, and I think what's really interesting is approaching this from different ways. I've been to CES for years. Before that, there was a thing called Comdex. Before that, you made computers out of wood.
That's right.
Or so you claim.
I did.
But I thought it'd be useful to look at the trends. The announced trends certainly that we heard coming into this were going to be AI in everything, AI in devices, automotive and mobile and wearables, which is hilarious because those have been the trends that are brand new this year. Every year I've been to CES for the last 8 or 10 years. But I wonder what you guys see as trends. Keith, let me start with you. What do you see as trends emerging at CES this year?
So CES is always the show where us enterprise-focused folks try and look at where's this going to hit me in my budget 2, 3, 4 years down the road. If we remember 15 years ago, roughly, the iPhone and mobile technology was the trend that consumers adopted and brought into the enterprise. I think AI is that thing. And we're all looking for on the show floor and conversations, where is AI going to impact the enterprise, whether it be the AI PC or AI in mobile?
So thinking more about what's going to happen on the back end when we see the things on the front end as we walk the show floor.
How do we control the data? How do we control access to it? How do we make sure we don't get in trouble by using AI in unethical ways? We're all looking at that.
Speaking of ethics, no, I don't know. Very ethical. Lisa, what are you saying? What's interesting to you?
This is my first CES, so I'm super excited to be here. This is the 58th CES. I mean, just getting your head around 4,000 exhibitors, 1,200 startups, all the space.
We're hearing like 120,000 people.
I'm hearing 130.
130.
130. Biggest, to your
Those
point,
last
since
10,000
COVID.
people snuck in when I wasn't counting.
They did, when your flight was canceled.
Yeah, there you go.
But one of the things that I'm hearing and seeing is more on the consumerization of AI in terms of, there's been so much negative press on AI for such a long time. We in the tech industry get to hear a lot of great applications of it. But in the consumer space, there's been so much fear.
Yeah, that's
and
interesting.
it's been perpetuating for a long time. And a lot of
Since
the
the
things...
Terminator, at least.
At least. Some of the things I'm seeing, though, are really helping, I think, to assuage people's concerns about it. I mean, you talked about wearables. So many people have wearables. We all have phones. We're using AI every day, and we don't necessarily know the application, but some of the cool things here on digital health. I also saw a modified plant that actually acts as an air purifier, to where you can put one of these plants in your home, it replaces 20 other plants in your home to actually reduce pollutants from the air. So just interesting ways of using technology.
It's electronic?
No.
Or it's consumer, at least. Why not?
It's consumer. Another thing is there's some really interesting leggings that emit microcurrents that actually apparently help you perform better in any sort of athletic performance that you're doing. So more things that I think are going to help assuage the concerns.
That's a good flavor, because there was some weird stuff. I saw a digital toilet seat last night. I'm not kidding. That is
I've
a thing.
seen this too.
Dave, I think me and you should model the leggings.
I think
okay.
so.
I'll get some for tomorrow.
To me, what I just heard is two things that might strangle me in my sleep.
Exactly.
the plant and these smart leggings.
The plant is making your home much more pollutant-free.
No.
So what are you seeing, Dave, besides that?
I kind of walk around split-brained. Part of it is, part of what I see is coming from the kid in me, and the number there is $3,750. That's nearly $4,000 I've spent in my mind on new toys that I've seen in the show so far. And then the other side is, what Keith and I share is kind of looking at these things as IoT and edge devices, and looking at this and thinking, wow, a lot of stuff is going to have to happen behind the scenes to support these things. So it's absolutely all about AI, and I look at that and I see AI at the edge, AI in these things that make up the Internet of Things.
Well, and I think that there's a real trend here. I mean, I mentioned Comdex was here back in the day before CES had such a big flavor, and I think that there's two things there. One is that we've seen the evolution of technology really go up the stack to things that people are using, consumer usage of whether it's social media or it's Uber or the things or just our phones in general. That wasn't a thing 15 years ago. No. And I think that the rise in technology in the hand of users has changed the importance of an event like Consumer Electronics Show. But the other thing that I think we're seeing is kind of a throwback. I think, and it's why I'm so excited to be with Futurum. This is a true fact, I'm not just saying nice things because I'm glad to be at Futurum, but I think that this is such an important time in technology because we're back at evolution of silicon and evolution of things in the enterprise world driving dramatic change in technology that I don't think we've seen. I think the change has been more iterative over the last 10 or 15 years, but all of a sudden, particularly because of NVIDIA, but a lot of companies around it, changing what's possible, and we're seeing like Qualcomm Snapdragon, fantastic processing power promised in PCs going forward. I think we're going to see these leaps in the rate of change with consumer electronics, and we're starting to see hints of that at this show.
Yeah, Dan Newman likes to tease that silicon is eating the world, play on the term that software is eating the world.
Concept, right?
Exactly, and I think NVIDIA is really showing its muscle. Ryan Shrout, who leads Signal 65, the lab performance company, was talking about how there's already tens of millions of NVIDIA GPUs out there. So this concept of the AI PC is already waiting to happen, and NVIDIA holds the keys to that whole market, and how now these semis are now flexing their muscles around this AI space.
And at the edge, we keep hearing about this promise of more AI compute at the edge, and we're starting to see some discussion of that at this conference.
It's going to be nice to see things actually manifest. You mentioned automotive, a big automotive show here. Yes, and I was just looking up at Rivian the other day. Rivian debuted only 4 years ago at CES in 2020, right before the pandemic. And now, at least in Silicon Valley, you see them all over the road. So it's come to fruition. I think that's an interesting thing to look at here.
Not, right? So many of the other particular electric car startups were, if not outright stock scams, real close.
Yes.
Lots of promotion, lots of hype. And that's one of the things that's, I think, hard to tell when you're here is what's real and what's hype.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that the magic plant that cleans the air or
leggings
that generate electricity, but maybe, I don't know.
And a dog collar that leverages GPS to actually do real-time tracking of where your dog or your cat is.
That's a good idea.
I found 3 devices I want.
Only for dogs?
Dogs and cats.
Only for dogs?
I think there's also an interesting tension between and I don't know if it's tension, but you have all really big companies here, the Motorola's of the world, maybe that's a smaller company that used to be, right? But that have been here for so many years. Companies like HP that have been through so many iterations that are here in size. But we also see these startups and smaller companies that are often betting the farm on the expense of being here, meeting with customers, and making deals.
Yeah. But on the big company front, it is amazing to have seen how much the automotive industry has taken part in CES now over the years. Because when we talk about Internet of Things, mobility is a big part of that, and a lot of people still have personal vehicles, and probably will into the future, too many. And they are becoming software platforms with over-the-air updates and things like that. So it's fascinating to see some of the concept vehicles that Honda has a couple that look like they'll never make it to market based on what the concept looks like today.
Yeah. What do you mean? Like they just look?
Well, unlike the Cybertruck, where it's
out?
like, hey, we're going to do this crazy thing, and then they actually build it and deliver it.
Well,
if you're into cars, we've all seen these concept vehicles over time that look really cool, and they never quite materialize. Maybe aspects of them do, but the software functionality absolutely does.
What was some of the functionality you saw?
So I think it's iterative in a way. It all kind of falls into the category of grid-like communication between vehicles and infrastructure. There are cities in China where they have this thing called the green wave, and they have for years, where once you get to a certain level of saturation with electric vehicles that can communicate with the grid, they all communicate and they say, most of us are going this way, turn all the lights green, and it cuts down on traffic. Mm-hmm. So those kinds of things where cars communicate with one another, that's going to be a big thing in the future.
Yeah, and Martin Casado from A16Z also talked about this actually a few years ago. All of these connected devices and the infrastructure needed to power this. How do you connect a billion connected devices in a world where AI is starting to help us? Companies, to your point, are betting the farm on CES that they have smart solutions to this, and not necessarily sell directly to consumers, but we have to remember this is an industry show where they can show their wares to a Dell Technologies, a HPE, etc., to kind of get above the noise.
Well, AI is certainly one of those things driving that. Fascinating thoughts here. I want to take a deeper look And one AI company in particular, Boomi, Lisa Martin, our very own Lisa Martin, sat down with Boomi to find out exactly what they're doing and how they're imagining the future here at the Consumer Electronics Show.
Hey everyone, welcome to the 6.5 Live. We're live in Las Vegas at CES 2024. I'm media host Lisa Martin. Very pleased to be here with the CEO of Boomi, Steve Lucas. Steve is a longtime veteran of enterprise software, nearly 30 years leading the helm as CEO and senior executive at Marketo, Adobe, Business Objects, SAP, Salesforce, iSIMS, you name it. Now for a year, a little over, Steve has been at the helm of Boomi, which is a leading global SaaS company focused on integration and automation. A lot has happened in the last year, and Steve's going to tell us about it now. Steve, great to see you. Welcome to the 6.5 Live.
Thank you for having me, Lisa. It's awesome to be here.
It is, and congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. It's been a year. Boomi's an amazing company, and I've loved every minute of it.
Talk me through some of those defining moments over the last year where you really started to see key elements of your strategic vision manifesting and coming to life.
Well, first of all, it's always customer, customer, customer. It's customer adoption. What are they doing with Boomi? You said it. Boomi is integration and automation. Most companies, they have motivations like, we need to digitally transform. So they start adopting cloud applications, new software, but they forget, oh, we need an integration and automation platform. That's where Boomi comes in. We are the integration and automation platform. We connect everything from apps to data to devices. Apropos, because we're at CES and pretty much every device on the planet's here.
It is here. And of course, what else is here? AI, AI, AI. The world has been taken by storm, and just a little over a year since ChatGPT was born, every company is saying, we need to get on the AI train, but what does that mean? How do we do it? You guys announced just a few months ago at Boomi World Tour in Silicon Valley, where I had the pleasure of working with you there, Boomi AI and Boomi GPT. Talk to us about those. How is Boomi helping organizations really kind of adopt the fundamentals of AI and become AI ready?
Well, I think there's probably very few people that haven't heard of GPT, or at least said it once now in the past year. And it really is changing everything in the world of software. What Boomi GPT does is it takes the integration and automation that we provide, and it literally lets anyone in an organization use it, apply it. Here's what I mean. Normally when you're thinking about things like how does my invoicing work? How does my supply chain work? How does employee onboarding work? If you want to build a business process for one of those kind of workflows, you need someone that knows the technology, knows the systems, how to connect. With Boomi GPT and Boomi AI, we've eliminated all of that. You can literally use natural language to type in things like, create my lead to cash process, go. And what we're building right now is even more transformative. We're going to allow our customers to ask it questions about your business. So if I have a question like, why didn't an invoice process? Literally, you can ask your business a question about itself. That's what Boomi AI is doing. So we're radically simplifying how integration and automation work inside of organizations, who can use it, and how quickly you can get to the benefit.
And speaking of quick to benefits, I saw a video, Steve, where you were talking about a staggering statistic in terms of what Boomi AI is able to enable IT resources to save on doing integrations. Share that with the audience because it's big.
Yeah, well, we set out a design goal when we said, hey, we're going to embrace this AI and generative pre-trained transformer technology, but we want to reduce the amount of effort to integrate and automate your systems by 90%. We reached that goal. That's what we're delivering for customers today, a 90% reduction in the work effort. And when you think about IT budgets, they're not going up.
Right.
They're staying flat, they're going down. CIOs are being asked to do more with less. So if Boomi's bringing this technology to the table that reduces your effort to drive integration and automation, which ultimately begets digital transformation by 90%, why would you not look at that?
It's a game changer.
Yep.
And a huge differentiator for Boomi.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about, here we are at CES. I know there's some great customer stories. Boomi has tons of great customers. I know that firsthand.
Yeah, but over 20,000.
Over 20,000 now, that's amazing.
Yeah.
What are some of the, here we are we expect as consumers, everything is connected. We're connected all the time. We can get access to anything, any transaction. Here we are at CES where AI is the name of the game. You had a chance to walk the show floor. What were some of the things that you saw that you think maybe Boomi can actually drive innovations here?
Well, when I walk the show floor, you kind of remember that, from the Matrix, that digital view of everything. I mean, I'm looking at every single device, knowing that Boomi not only connects apps and data, but we connect devices. We have amazing customers, and I'll get to that. Some of them are from healthcare and audio and all kinds of amazing things. But I walk the show floor, besides seeing every robot lawnmower that you can think of. But the reality is like Boomi connects all of these systems, all of these devices. We connect all of that. So for any organization that's looking to integrate their devices. I mean, we have a company, for example, that they use Boomi to connect to a dryer at a university to tell a student on an app when their clothes are dry.
Nice.
So we have infinite use cases, but I was walking the show floor just obviously blown away with the amount of innovation. But that's where Boomi focuses, is on coupling the innovation that people want to drive with how they connect to their customers and their operational systems.
And you mentioned some great use cases. Healthcare is one of the ones that always fascinates me because it affects everybody. Digital health, all of the things going on here with health technology. You know, we're so used to wearables. I feel naked without my wearable today, left it at home. But all of the great things that AI is enabling consumers to do. Do you feel that there is a sense of consumers maybe feeling a little bit more comfortable with AI, since there's been a lot of challenges with it from a branding perspective?
I think, whether it's a consumer or a corporation, it could be, any kind. The first thing you got to get over is the comfort around the use of your data. And that's where Boomi gets pulled in as well, is because what we're doing with AI, and specifically Boomi AI, is we're enabling customers to power their AI visions, but do it in a secure and managed way. That's what you ultimately want to do. We have customers today, take Innovis, for example, great healthcare customer. They're using Boomi to integrate their supply chain end-to-end. And that's just one example of literally hundreds, if not thousands, of use cases in healthcare for Boomi.
That's fantastic. Talk a little bit about one of the things that I know that you say is, technology needs to serve a purpose. It has to drive business outcomes. How is Boomi AI going to be that game changer for organizations to deliver better outcomes to their end users faster?
Well, this is the thing. I think, if you walk in, I've been in this industry for a long time. You walk into any organization, there's so much undeployed technology, so much shelfware. It's not serving a purpose. It's not driving that net benefit for the company. What Boomi's all about is ensuring that no matter what your software investment, that we're able to get you to that benefit faster. So if you've invested in SAP, Oracle, it doesn't matter. We're able to integrate all of your technology into a supply chain landscape. We have one amazing customer, Sonos, as a great case in point. I mean, they're integrating hundreds of systems with their SAP supply chain technology. So, these types of things are great examples of how, Boomi is accelerating that time to benefit.
That's what it's all about, is accelerating that time to value. Last question for you, Steve. You just passed the 1-year mark at Boomi, as we talked about in the beginning of the conversation. What's next? What does the horizon look like from your lens?
Well, you said it. First of all, it's AI, but it's also APIs. The world that we live in, and again, CES here in Las Vegas, I think it's very apropos. Everything in the world has an API now. Well, I have an API. Although you mentioned the wearables, right? We all have APIs. It's AI and APIs, and it's how do we bring those two worlds together? Everything that's driven by an API on the right hand, a programming interface, and how can you then automate and integrate those with AI and artificial intelligence on the left? We're bringing those worlds together at Boomi, and that's what we want to do for our 20,000 plus customers, is help them usher in the future, and it's going to be AI and APIs.
I love that. Any sneak peeks at Boomi World, which is coming up in May, that you can share?
Well, you probably heard we have Coach Prime speaking. I'm so excited about that. I mean, he's truly amazing. He's a perfect example of someone that's just incredibly innovative, and that's what we want to showcase. We're going to be showing an entire range of capabilities the world's never seen around AI. We're also launching a task automation technology that anyone can use, automating your entire work life from your phone. So there's a lot of exciting stuff coming.
Excellent, Steve. We'll look forward to seeing you there. Thank you so much for joining us on the 6-5 Live, sharing what's happened in the last year and what's to come for Boomi. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
My pleasure. For Steve Lucas, I'm Lisa Martin. You're watching the 6-5 live from CES 2024.
CES has officially kicked off, but not everybody gets inside. Luckily for you, I got a media pass. Let's go. So this is the kickoff event for the media at CES, and it's a chance to really see what's trending in the industry. Trends like VR. Also some wearables. I did get the chance to try on some new outfits. And of course, a ton of mobility solutions, from electrification to autonomous cars or devices to support autonomous cars. So that's a look at the first official event here at CES 2024. We got a look at some super cool devices and some devices that may not make it to market, unfortunately, like the exercise legs, maybe, but we still got to look at some trends that are happening in the industry, so stay tuned for more coverage like this in the show ahead.
All right, welcome back to 6.5 Live. I'm Corey Johnson here in Las Vegas at the 2024 Consumer Electronics Show. So much innovation happening here, but of course, one of the exciting things when you're talking to businesses here is how they're using this show to get a look at the future, to plan for the future, for future consumer electronics shows, and no company doing more of that than Intel itself. And Intel, inside so many things, focused not just, of course, on their historic business of the PC, but so focused on mobility. And Pat and Dan had a chance to sit down with Intel to really look at what their plans are going forward. Check this out.
The 6.5 is live here at CES 2024. We are in the Intel Automotive Suite here. Dan, this show has been rocking. I mean, whether it's AI PCs, automotive in AI, and as you say, AI.
Well, I just have said that if you want to be one of these really great prognosticators for 24, you can say what trends will be big in tech. And then you could come up with like this great list and 1 AI, 2 AI, 3 AI. But the truth is AI is kind of horizontal, right?
Sure.
So it's kind of overlaying things. So it's things like wearables with AI, automotive with AI, PCs with AI. And then when you start to say that, it starts to sound a little less silly and a little bit more practical, which is what's going on here at the first big event of 2024, which is CES. Good to be here.
Exactly. And automotive, as we've seen, and the 6.5 has been coming to CES the past 3 years. I think this is my 20th maybe, but 6.5 has been here for 3. You laugh there.
I like to do age jokes.
Okay, no, that's okay. We're good. You've done a few of those on, and everybody laughed and thought it was funny. I think it's funny too. But anyways, automotive has become a huge hit here so far at the show. And quite frankly, for the last 10 years, automotive has been a huge part of CES. One company, as you could probably see in the back, is Intel, has been in automotive for literally decades. And they're bringing out a new strategy, a new offering, and it's getting everybody is talking about this right now. And with that, I'd like to introduce Jack from Intel. Great to see you.
Thank you, Pat. Great to see you as well.
First time on 6.5. We appreciate you coming on the show.
Happy to be here.
Yeah.
Thrilled.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jack, it's good to have you here. Really interesting week. So you have come out with a bang, a new automotive strategy coming from Intel. And of course, a lot of people have watched. Intel still is the largest shareholder in Mobileye, but when that decision to spin off Mobileye was made, there were some thoughts is, what's Intel's future in automotive? Will the company stay committed to it? Of course, you are here to tell us what's going on with that, because it doesn't only look like the company is staying committed, it looks like it's kind of reintroducing itself in a really significant way into the automotive space with some pretty big plans. Talk a little bit about what's being announced this week and the company's plans in automotive overall.
Yeah, absolutely right. And our ambitions in automotive are even larger than when we were the sole owner of Mobileye. Going through that process was some soul searching. When we spun them out, it was an opportunity for us to sit back and think about, what challenges is the industry's facing, beyond just ADAS, and how can Intel help? And with Pat Gelsinger's new IDM 2.0 strategy built around flexible leadership products based on open platforms, supported by a globally balanced, resilient supply chain, these 3 pillars of our new corporate strategy matched exactly what the automotive industry needs. And so we saw a fantastic match for our strengths, our expertise, our experience, for an opportunity to reboot what is Intel Automotive and how can we help the industry solve some of its biggest challenges.
So Jack, I've heard you talk about bringing the AI PC to automotive. I think that's a really good analogy. And I think we've also been talking about, probably since the advent of Tesla, which was the software-defined vehicle out there. Let's talk now, though, which is 2024 and beyond. What are the needs of the modern automakers related to silicon that you've identified? And by the way, when you and I talked, I don't know, 9 months ago, 6 months ago, about this in Florida, there's a lot of conversations. Hey, our customers want us to make an aggressive entry, or not re-entry, into this market. So what are they telling you? What are their needs?
That's a great question. And what they're telling us is, frankly, they just weren't satisfied with a lot of the options that were out there. There's some nice high-end solutions that don't scale low, some nice low-end solutions that don't scale high. And so what we saw was an opportunity to bring performance, scalability, top to bottom to an entire vehicle lineup, and do what we call software-defined done right. So not only do we bring AI to the car from the AI PC, but when you consolidate workloads, you need a silicon foundation like the one that we've built for 20 plus years in the data center that support multiple different workloads from different operating systems running all at the same time on the same piece of silicon. But the trick is you can't do that just at the high end. To truly be scalable top to bottom, an automaker needs a single solution that can scale from their lowest segment vehicle all the way to the premium segment. And that's why this week, we announced that not only are we going to be the first supplier to deliver a chiplet-based product to the automotive industry, we're also going to be the first supplier to allow our customers to put their own chiplet inside of our roadmap product. And so with a disaggregated chiplet-based approach, they can get that top to bottom scalability and dial up or down the capabilities they need in their product. And the feedback we've gotten from that has been phenomenal.
So performance sounds like it's a big focus, and you're working towards having performance from low to high, which of course, we've seen a lot of kind of building block approaches.
Yeah.
And then there's been black box approaches. It sounds like you're going a little bit more the building block, where you can help these OEMs to really reinvent themselves. I mean, that's what's going on right now, these companies. And you've seen some of them have tried to do it themselves, and they're kind of coming back, and it sounds like maybe some of those companies are coming back to you saying, we need a partner in this thing. And so having performance is important, but power management is also very important because, part of the whole electrification, part of the whole moving to ADAS is it's about safety, it's about performance, it's also about sustainability. And so Intel always focuses on sustainability and power when they talk about their data center solutions, when they talk about their PC solutions. Well, this is the PC on wheels. It sounds like a little bit of what I've heard is that this is also a big part of your story. Talk a little bit about the power management story here and how Intel plans to use what it's done in other parts of the business to lead its automotive strategy around power management.
I mean, the industry is basically headed towards a sustainability brick wall. If you chart out availability of supply, even to build the amount of batteries we're going to need for these electric vehicles, there's just a huge gap today, and it just gets even bigger. And so we can, sit around and hope for a breakthrough in battery technology, or we can start to focus on the efficiency side of the equation, which is what we did 20 plus years ago when we introduced mobile PC computers. I worked on those early in my career, and these were desktop PC boards put on its side with the battery attached. The battery life was terrible. It was 20 pounds, in weight. And we realized that when you have a platform that's designed to run at full power all the time because it's designed to plug into the wall, it's not the most energy efficient solution. So industry standards like ACPI we created to be able to more intelligently manage energy in the PC platform, and that's how we get the battery life that we have for even more powerful computers today. Well, in the automotive space and in electric vehicles in particular, that vehicle platform was designed to run behind an internal combustion engine, an energy source that even when it's idling, you've got so much energy to go around, there's no point in power managing the electrical components that are inside the vehicle. So we're just going to bring these same proven and used concepts from the IT industry, apply it to a vehicle platform, and we were thrilled to announce this week with SAE that we'll be chairing a new work group to bring those concepts to the automotive industry.
So I want to bring up chiplets. So first of all, it makes total sense. By the way, I love the IP that your customers can bring in a chiplet. I mean, in a way, I feel like I've been promoting that, or not promoting it, but talking about the benefits of that for a long time. And chiplets are just a very elegant way to be able to do that. You solved a lot of problems with Foveros as an example, but do chiplets help with the more and more chips being consumed overall in a car? Is there a way that chiplets can help with, I'll call it, silicon sprawl, for lack of a better term?
Yeah, they certainly can help from an integration and consolidation standpoint, because rather than having to have full, discrete, monolithic designs everywhere throughout the car, you can take just the elements of that monolithic design that are relevant, put that on a chiplet, and integrate that into a larger system where you already have a powerful CPU, GPU, and other I/O components. So if you think about the silicon footprint in a car, think about how much of that silicon footprint is duplicated. It's the same I/O blocks, talking to the same communications buses. So when you consolidate, not only do you get efficiencies in terms of consolidation scale from a software standpoint, but absolutely that would extend to silicon footprint as well.
Well, Jack, it's been great to hear a little bit about where the company is, and of course, congratulations. It's been a pretty fast pivot because you guys made the decision, did the spin-off, and like I said, you're still heavily invested there. But now you've got two plays, and you've been able to reestablish and seemingly win some early confidence in the market. How does this evolve? We know the companies that you're partnering with, for instance, putting their chiplet inside of of your software can give them an advantage to move quicker. Where do you see it maybe in a year when we're sitting here again? What are we talking about?
Yeah, it's super interesting to think about because for sure, if we think even just this decade, this industry is going to look completely different by the end of this decade than it does today. And so we start thinking about a year or two from now. I think the thing that stands out to me is I think a year from now, we're going to be talking about how the automotive industry is moving to an IT-like design life cycle, where instead of taking 4 to 5 years to design a vehicle, you're going to have automakers doing it in 12, 18 months and getting on that leading node consumer silicon cadence, which I think will not only bring great benefits for consumers, but is going to completely transform the industry and the opportunities, for a company like Intel. And so that's why we think this is absolutely one of our best growth opportunities we've got for our company and a perfect match for our new IDM 2.0 strategy.
So Jack, what does the foundational sort of first run of technology look like?
Well, as we announced this week, we're launching our brand new first generation line of software-defined vehicle SoCs. So this is an amazing combination of the AI PC from an in-vehicle experience standpoint with proven in use silicon-enforced virtualization capabilities for workload consolidation in the vehicle. It's a family of different products. They'll start commercially shipping later this year. And as we announced with Zeekr, our first OEM already committing to use the design, and stay tuned for more later this year.
Excellent.
Well, Jack, I want to thank you so much for sitting down with us here at CES. A very strong start to the story, to the business. I look forward to following. I'm sure Pat does too. Hearing about design wins, hearing about where Intel lands. Of course, you're strategically in the background working with a lot of the automotives and the OEMs. CES, we love to hear the wins, seeing the designs, and then of course experiencing. Like you see in this demo room here, getting to experience the technology in real time. We're also both car guys, so it doesn't hurt. But thanks so much for sitting down with us.
My pleasure, guys. Great to be here with you as well.
Thanks.
All right, everybody, we are here at CES 2024 in the booth inside the automotive demo suite at Intel's Experience. That's a lot, that's a mouthful, but it's a great experience. If you're here at the show and you happen to catch it, stop on by if you can get in and check out all the stuff that they're doing. But for this episode of the 6-5, for Patrick Moorhead and myself, we've got to say goodbye. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see y'all later.
Well, that was super cool. That gives you a really good look at what happens here at the Consumer Electronics Show. Looking so far into the future, I'm Corey Johnson, back here with 6-5 Live, joined by the panel right now, Keith, Lisa, and Dave. Good to have you back here. This idea of designing chips for what the future of automotive is going to look like in the near future. I thought the most interesting thing about that interview to me was this notion of designing for the entire platform of a vehicle, from the cheapest model to the most premium, all within the same company. You're a big car guy, so I really do want to start with you, Dave. I mean, what happens on the inside of cars is so much more monumental, regular change than what happens with the engine and the chassis and everything else that makes the physical car these days, and we can sort of hear where that's going in the future with Intel.
Yeah. I'm a car guy. I'm also an Intel guy, and what this conversation that we just listened to reminds me a lot of is something called the Open Data Center Alliance that Intel pioneered more than a decade ago. And when we talk about all of the AI things that are going on, not just within the mobility space, but everywhere else, there's this gold rush that's on right now. It's competition between the bespoke models that people are gravitating to today, and what is likely to be this sort of co-opetition marketplace that will drive down the cost of everything, that will encourage standardization. So I was sort of listening between the lines from the Intel pitch.
What you were listening for was, is Porsche going to make sure their thing is always a Porsche, or is the inside of a Porsche going to have some of the same chiplets as the inside of an Accord?
So Honda Accord, Porsche 911, same foundational layer in terms of the technology, helps everybody. It drives interoperability, it drives down cost. It's good for everyone except for someone who wants to try to monopolize an entire vertical stack.
But isn't that what we've seen from automobiles, that the car makers really do want to have, the Mercedes experience is going to be only ours, and that's why it's Mercedes?
They want to. GM has just been pushing back on Apple CarPlay as an example, and I think they'll suffer for it. BMW recently has flip-flopped on its subscription model for various services. The irony is the subscription model is designed so that you don't have to buy everything up front. It's designed to deliver maximum consumer choice. People interpret it as being being screwed over because they're being forced to have a subscription.
Yeah, it sounds like Intel Automotive wants to be the Intel x86 of automotive.
Exactly.
Yeah, you know, semis are again, this is an example of semis exerting their muscle, their skill to standardize. It is to folks like Intel, AMD, NVIDIA, these chip manufacturers to commoditize this layer, this software layer, which should be a commodity. I shouldn't have to worry about what apps will work in my Tesla versus what apps will work in my Chevy. The apps should just work. This idea that, you know, we suffer with it, we're at CES, we suffer with it with our set-top boxes. Netflix on one platform looks completely different than Netflix on another platform. Why is that? It's because there's no common layer. So what Intel is talking about is things that consumers want. We're asking for them, but we're seeing the competitive kind of nature of big enterprise want to take CarPlay out of my Ford Explorer.
The customer voice, I think, was also loud and clear in the conversation that we just saw in terms of Intel reacting to, these are the challenges that customers are having. This is what they're looking for us to help them solve. And so that commonality layer that you talked about, I think, was really in stark reaction to what customers are actually telling Intel. This is what we need to make things far more efficient, far more usable. And we're seeing that, I think, within a number of technologies around here, is that commonality layer, making things far more efficient, much more user-friendly. And when companies listen to the voice of the customer, they generally win.
Well, and developer friendly too, right?
Yes.
I mean, if we're talking about a monolithic notion of hardware in the car, at least computer hardware or silicon hardware, then maybe that's easier for the programmers to go across the board.
Exactly.
Yeah, the trick with listening to the customer directly is the customer typically wants a bunch of perfect substitutes so that they can leverage choices against one another. Yeah. But they also want the maximum amount of attention put towards innovation. And often those things are at odds. If you reduce everyone to the lowest common denominator and you drive margin out, there isn't as much room for R&D and innovation. Intel has struck a pretty good balance in the past with standardization on x86 architecture, and I think that the future looks promising in the automotive space also. But it is interesting to watch the bubbling up of innovation that happens in these incubator companies that end up getting acquired largely. They become the innovation engines. They hope to. Yeah. They become the innovation arms of companies that are operating on relatively skinny margins because they've embraced standardization. So that's how we overcome that kind of tension between the desire for innovation, the desire for standardization, and cheapness.
Well, you heard Daniel allude to the Mobileye and whether or not that was sort of not having an interest in being in that business, or maybe just Mobileye wasn't the platform that they wanted. Obviously, they've still got the investment there, but not the management of that business. I do think it's interesting that, you know, one of the things with the Consumer Electronics Show, and back in the day Comdex, is that Apple's always stayed away.
Yes.
And here, you know, you mentioned CarPlay, which is, you know, slow and steady wins the race, right? This is a company that has taken us a long time to get its foothold into other cars, and we expect an Apple car probably in the next 2 years or so. At least it's the latest. And it's interesting to hear them kind of talked or alluded to, but not really talked about, and certainly not talking here at CES.
Yeah. They're famously not here,
Yeah.
right? I think that's something
that's been their
me.
deal. Yeah.
It has been, and being this is my first CES, that was one of the biggest surprises. I posted on LinkedIn about a fun fact, 10 fun facts about CES yesterday. That was one of them, because you think consumer electronics, you think Apple. A vast majority of us do.
Are you an Apple hater?
I'm a fanboy.
Are you?
I'm a fanboy.
I couldn't. You made a comment during the break, and I couldn't tell if you were hating.
No. I've been an Apple fanboy forever, and it offends me that they're not here.
Yeah, I was really hoping to see Vision Pro.
Oh, come on, absolutely.
I am ready to pull the trigger. You know, I have a young driver, and I would love to get her in front of a Vision Pro before I put her in the seat of my F-250.
That's a great
idea. That would be a great, use case for it, and it would have been great to see
I've got 4 teenage drivers. I'm like State Farm's favorite customer at this point.
I've got a PlayStation I'll send you.
Yeah, well,
and a wheel. Yeah.
But it is interesting that this notion. Do you think when they're talking about kind of the standardization of chiplets across all kinds of vehicles, and you talk about the notion of lowering costs, is it actually just providing more at the same cost? Because I think one of the curious things to me about the car business is the different price points, the low price points for cars in outside of the United States. The cars in China that are prices we can't even imagine in the United States, the $15,000 cars and so on. And you wonder if they can start to have some of the same technologies, or what we're talking about is so many more features that you can keep, that the silicon component is so much greater in the vehicle that the cost is the same, but the things they do is so much greater.
Yeah, well, the auto industry at large, very complicated. Lots of things that go into the price of a vehicle by the time it gets to a consumer. But in this standardization discussion, Intel is doing what's good for Intel and hopefully for the marketplace. But they're focused on what's good for Intel, as they should, right? Other companies are going to be competing in this space. Back to the AI part of this, everybody's coming up with their own silicon. I'm probably going to carve mine out of wood, of course. My AI, my GPUs will be carved out of wood. But Keith and I have been to this. Keith and I have been to this movie before. It's co-opetition at its best. It's the wild, wild west right now in a lot of these spaces, and it's going to be really interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, the last thing that I really keyed in the conversation was power envelope. You're talking about the same features. We're used to getting more and more features on our mobile device, but same power envelope. Again, I drive an F-250 because I'm pulling a huge Airstream. I would love to drive an electric truck that gives me the same range for roughly the same price, so that I have the conveniences and innovation that's going into the EVs versus combustion engines.
Well, there's certainly lots more automotive innovation that we're seeing here, and electric's going to be a big part of that. Thanks, guys. Appreciate that. We're going to take a quick break here, and afterwards we're going to take a deeper look at some of the interesting things going on in the world of AI here at the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas with 6.5 Live.
A ton of virtual reality on display here at CES unveiled, but not all these headsets have a hologram built into it or one you could see. Obviously, a lot more we need to learn. I'm joined by Hiroki with Holotech Inc. Did I say that right?
Yes.
Okay. Well, tell us about what you got here. It's super cool.
Thank you very much. So what we do is we stream the hologram from iPhone to the VR headset. So if I put the headsets on, I can see you like you're right in front of me and communicate. That's what we can do.
Yes, the communication is definitely the next level here. And what you don't know right now is there's somebody standing right here, right? When you put on this headset, you see the hologram appearing right here. And basically, Hiroki can communicate with that person. You say it's great for meetings, it can bring live shows to life.
Exactly.
People are using this right now in Japan, you say?
Yes, it is.
And tell us more about the use cases and demand for it there.
So we work with Japanese telecommunication companies, and we work with Japanese industrial company. We build internal meeting system for them. And they use it for their one-on-one to have better communication.
Okay. How does it send data back and forth? Does it have 5G built into it or another type of communication?
So we can stream with 4G network. If we can use the 5G network, we can update more quality of the hologram better. But we can stream with 4G network for stable.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Now you say that competitors are, big tech companies like Google as an example.
Yeah.
What are you doing differently from Google?
So Google's Starline requires very huge hardware. It has more than 10 cameras and 10 sensors. But on the other hand, we can do with single iPhone. Latest iPhone Pro series has the LiDAR camera, which is the 3D sensor. We use that 3D sensor to capture the hologram. So we can do it with the iPhone to any VR and AR headsets.
Okay. And lastly, talk about what does this say about the trends in tech today when it comes to VR and the way we're living and working and communicating with our environment?
So if we talk about VR, people thought about it's a gaming or metaverse, but nowadays people would like to use it for their business, like work at their work. Like the iPhone Visual Pro shows potential use cases for the VR and AR. So I think more and more business people is going to adapt the devices sooner, I think.
Are you looking to build AI into it at all, or on-device AI is huge?
Yes, actually we use a lot of AI to capture the hologram and generate the hologram data to it. But in the future, we can use the regular video data to convert to hologram with the AI. That's what we can do.
Oh, interesting. Okay, well, a lot more to come, so we'll have to stay tuned.
All right, welcome back. We're here on the floor of the CES show. There's so many big companies you've heard about, but also lots of small companies, things you've never thought about, companies in health tech, companies working on wearable devices, all kinds of mobile devices, and all of them talking this year about the theme of AI. So as they set up the show here at CES, AI is so very important, not least of which companies like Groq, which Daniel's talking to right now.
Jonathan, welcome back. Good to see you again.
Thanks, it's great to be here.
Yeah, this show covers so much ground. And of course, I think any prognosticator out there could have made the assumption of what CES is going to be about this year, and it's about AI.
Really?
Absolutely. Now, this is kind of a moment for you, though, right? I mean, you had to have sometime, I don't know, maybe around November of 2022, there must have been like a day you kind of woke up with a big smile on your face. And while it wasn't Groq news per se, that seeing the advent of generative AI and of ChatGPT and the popularization and OpenAI and just the fact that it became the center of media and technology industry attention, you had to have said, this is our moment.
So we always knew that inference for generative AI was going to be the biggest part of the market. So we've been doing this since 2016. Prior to that, built the AI chip at Google. So this has been what I've been working on. But it probably wasn't until, I would say, March of 2023 that it became clear that we were going to be a big player in this, because all the models got very, very large. And for that, GPUs don't really work too well.
So talk a little bit about that. For you, that's common sense. But for some companies that are having mega growth in GPU sales, people may say, what do you mean GPUs? And by the way, teaser, you heard them talk about inference. So why do you feel so strongly, though, that the GPU maybe isn't the answer for inference?
Well, first of all, what's the difference? So training is when you create the model, inference is when you put it in production. Training scales with the amount of data that you're training on, inference scales with the number of users that you have. Training costs you money, inference makes you money. But what ends up happening is people build these really expensive models, and they're like, mission accomplished. And then they try and put it into production, they can't afford it, or it runs really slow. And so what you end up seeing is these models come out, people try to put them into production, they're like, how do I do this? And the issue with existing architectures is they're all based on external memory. Think of it this way. If you were trying to build 1 million cars this year, and it took a million square feet of factory floor space, but you only had 100,000 square feet of floor space, you would actually have to set the factory up for the first 1/10 of the production line, send the materials through, take it down, reset it up, and then send them through again. That'd be very slow, as opposed to just streaming the cars all the way through. And that's the way GPUs work. They can't fit the entire model in the memory, so they use this external memory called an HBM, which might be very popular right now because hard to get, very limited resource. And so You just reconfigure the GPU over and over again. That's slow. For training, that's fine, because you don't really care when you get that car out at the end. For real-time stuff like inference, you actually care how long it takes and how efficient it is.
So you're telling me it turns out that people do care. And by the way, anyone that's using various GPT, ChatGPT, Bard, there is definitely a discernible difference. And by the way, Groq, at the end of the year, you kind of came out and said, look, yeah, we may be, have established ourselves as an AI semiconductor play, but you're in the game now. You came out with Groq Chat and lots of side-by-side out there with other LLMs, and you're showing what you're doing. Talk about kind of the momentum, what happened at the end of the year, and kind of why did you go down the path of launching an alpha version of Groq Chat?
Well, while we may have started to realize in March of 23 that we had something special, not everyone else did. It was really hard to describe to people why a GPU wasn't going to solve their problem. A lot of the feedback that we got was, well, the output from these large language models, it's coming out at the speed I can read it. Why would I ever want it to be faster? So we made it faster, we put it in front of people, and they literally go, wow. In fact, it happened so frequently, we started putting a bunch of videos online of people going, wow, when we showed it off. Like when we're doing a demo live in front of people who haven't seen it before, they go, wow, and it's palpable and loud. So speed matters. It's sort of like going from dial-up to broadband. So if we think about 2023, 2023 was really the first year where people were starting to realize, oh, this AI thing might be real. But it was still theoretical. You didn't really use it in your daily life. You would play with it, maybe one query a day, two, but it's not like this thing is around me, it's everywhere. What you're going to see in 2024 is as it becomes fast, as it becomes interactive, it's going to become very real. So 2024 is the year that generative AI becomes real.
Yeah, and actually it's interesting you said that. If you listen to some of the earnings from last quarter, you hear CEOs like Chuck Robbins from Cisco, and he was talking about the fact that there's a impact to backlog because companies bought a lot of infrastructure last year. But the deployment actually, especially for a lot of enterprise, I mean, you know, we sort of look at the world through the lens of a handful of hyperscalers who have quickly bought, deployed, and implemented, but thousands of enterprises around the world that have various different AI ambitions have bought some of this equipment, and it's only kind of very slowly. In fact, Future Intelligence looked at this. Our average, we looked at a customer data set, 300% increase in companies that are going to spend multi-millions of dollars this year on AI deployments. 300%, so it's going to triple the amount of companies that are spending. Pretty, you know, it's pretty significant. So clearly speed matters, and the customers are telling you that. And by the way, I'll tell you that. I played with the demo. Incredibly impressive. I shared it out on my socials because I was a little bit blown away because you know you kind of watch there and you watch the tokens and you're watching them write and you're like, you become used to that being the thing, but we accept mediocrity. And why? Why are we accepting mediocrity? Is because, yeah, well, maybe you know part of Groq's mission can be to at least set a new standard of higher mediocrity, fast mediocrity. I'm kidding.
So actually when we released chat.groq.com, Groq with a Q, that actually made #1 on Hacker News that day.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. And it had nothing to do with having to cease and de-Groq. So.
Okay. Well, we have a pretty popular name. A lot of people like it apparently.
No question about it. And like I said, I would personally believe that it would only help. So talk a little bit about why we're here at CES. You know, it's a consumer show, and obviously consumers are using LLMs. What's kind of the motivator that's bringing you here to the show?
So this is the first time Groq has ever visited CES. We're not consumer facing. But what we're doing is we're building the technology that allows others to build interactive, engaging consumer experiences. So we're actually here with customers announcing a joint partnership where we're actually being the back end that they're using for some of their products.
Share a little bit more. I think you had a party, in fact, a little cocktail get together here. So you may be your first time here. And by the way, you may not really be consumer facing, but anyone that's out there using the chat.groq.com is, you know, it's open to anybody to try it. So it's kind of consumer facing now.
Well, actually, I think this is one of the most telling things about the importance of speed and that interactivity, because we did nothing but take an open source stock Llama 2 70 billion model, put it on our chips, put it on a website, doesn't have chat history, doesn't have anything, and the usage just keeps growing.
Yeah.
Because people want that speed. They want an answer quickly, and it's just more engaging to just get your answer immediately. One of the fun things was we came up with this prompt where it was, you are in a text-based adventure game. And we sort of baked that into the URL, we sent that out, and a bunch of people started playing it, and the uptake was growing because it's so rapid. Like when you say, okay, this is what I'm going to do with my advisors to protect the castle, you get this immediate response, and that just becomes so engaging. But we didn't build a consumer product. Consumers are just using it. Yeah.
Right, but I mean, you kind of accidentally became a consumer facing a little bit, and that's good. I think it helps raise popularity and awareness. And the point is, when you put, this is where open source meeting the best hardware can create a really positive response and almost a groundswell of support for, hey, we want better. And you know what you talked about GPU for training, but we want something better for inference. And by the way, inference is the workload that's going to start to scale the fastest. Everybody knows this. Everybody sees it coming. That's why even those that kind of deemed traditional CPUs dead, it's like, no, they're not going to die because we have so much inferencing to do. But we need very specific high-performing ones when latency matters. We need the right kind of hardware. And so you're basically showing that right now in the real world to the consumers in your own little way. So back to your event here, though. You are partnering, I think, a robotics partnership that's, just give us the quick update on what this event and what this company's doing.
So what we're doing is we're providing the back end that allows this robotic toy for children. It's built by a company called Embodied, and the robot is called Moxie. And that is actually going to speak to children live. And the problem that they had was, as the child is speaking to the robot, it goes back, it waits, like that. It's very awkward, right? But when we connect up to it, it just has this fluid conversation without these pauses. And so it doesn't have to do all these gymnastics. Like it's really clever. Like the robot starts looking up like this and waiting. And then finally, when it gets an answer, it can speak. But you do that too many times with a child, and they're going to get bored with it. Yep. To have that engaging, interactive experience, it needs to be speedy. And so that's what Groq's doing. We're not providing the wow. We're enabling all of our customers to provide wow by having that interactive experience.
And that's running in the cloud, right?
Yes.
So, and that's one of the big things is, of course, we're hearing a lot about edge inference, and that will be a workload, and there will be the whole running an LLM on the PC. I mean, one of the hot trends of this event, I think you've seen AI PC, but it won't be all things. There's just too much data and accessibility and dynamicism available by being in the cloud. And if you have to do it locally, you're always going to have some limitations about running it locally. So it's really an and equation. You're going to want to have good local and access to the cloud and no latency.
And I think if you look historically, there's a reason why, even though there were search programs that you could run locally, no one did it. It just wasn't very good. You don't have as much access to as much data.
Right. It's not dynamic.
It's not dynamic, but so like you can't update it as easily. Yep. It's much more expensive. It uses more battery power. Like, when you're using one of these LLMs in the cloud, you're sending a couple of characters of text.
Yep.
Then tera to petaops of compute are performed on that. That's a lot more zeros of something happening and a lot more energy. And if you were to try and put that on device, it just wouldn't be practical. But also you just wouldn't have as much data, right? When you're doing a search, you're talking about, tera, peta, exabytes of data that are available, and that gives you a better result. You would never be able to physically fit a lot of these models on a device, no matter how much you quantize them down, and then the quality will drop. But you don't get an advantage, right? Yep. It costs more to do it on device, it takes more energy, and the quality is lower.
Yeah, and I think we'll see that conversation continue to evolve. Of course, we're hearing all the PC makers, Microsoft, others that are really focusing on kind of this PC where things do happen local. Mm-hmm. But like I said, I think it's going to be both. I think in the end, you're going to have certain workloads, but I do think for that constant, updatable, flexible, low power, all the things you mentioned, it needs to be able to function with almost near zero latency, near zero human visible latency, whether it's local, because people don't care where it happens. They just care that it's good.
They care that it's good, that it's fast.
Accurate, all those different things. So
up to date.
As we wrap up here really quick, any other big things you're hoping, and even personally, just like being here at CES, anything you're really kind of eyes on, or for Groq that you want to kind of share with the audience?
Well, I'm just excited to see what people are doing with generative AI. One of the things that I'm doing is I'm going around looking at the things where, wow, if this was just a little bit faster, how much better could it be? Example, that text-based adventure game thing that I mentioned, people have done that. There are examples of that, but it's so slow, it's unusable, and it's not getting traction. So we're just going around looking at, ooh, if that was fast, that would take off. Ooh, if that was fast, that would take off.
Yeah, you need to Groq the heck out of it.
Exactly.
Jonathan Ross, thanks so much for joining me here at 6.5 Live at CES 2024. It's good to have you here. It's always good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
So yes, you've heard that AI is a big deal. It's a big deal everywhere, certainly here at the Consumer Electronics Show, but beyond AI, there's this thing called the internet. That's right, but the internet's going through some massive changes. There's a suggestion of an entirely new internet, not Web 2, Web 3. Web 3 so very important, with Dave and Diana talking about that right now.
Hey everybody, I'm here on the show floor at CES 2024, the opening day, which as you can see, people wasted no time to get in here. It's packed, and I'm joined by a very special guest now, Dave Nicholson, a fellow 6.5 host. How's it going?
It's going well. This is exciting. How are you doing?
It is exciting, and I'm getting my steps in also, so it's a great exercise program too.
Yeah, no kidding. I think miles and miles will be stepped today for sure.
For sure. Okay, well, we should get back to the news, I suppose.
Yes.
You know, there are a lot of trends here, but something that I haven't seen quite so evident, which we've seen in the past, you know, blockchain and crypto, and that is all something wrapped up into Web 3. So tell me more. First, let's define what Web 3 is.
So if you want to talk about Web 3, first you should talk about Web 1. So go back to the early days of the internet. Web 1.0 was basically static pages of information. And then we started introducing kind of video and cool stuff when we got to Web 2. Usually people consider that 2004 to be that time place, that point in time. And that's where web pages started to be constructed on the fly. So your view of something is different than my view, different ads, different content, pieces of content coming from all over the place. The hallmark of Web 3 is the advent of the blockchain era. Some people equate blockchain with crypto, but those things are, although they are inextricably linked, blockchain is a standalone way to create an immutable record of things that have happened, whether those are transactions or content that's been created. And so that's the foundation of Web 3. And one reason I think you're not hearing a ton about it right now is because of all the Sam Bankman-Fried stuff that's happened over the last year, fluctuations in the crypto market. I think that's settled down a bit, and we'll get back to the business of what's going to happen in Web 3, which is a lot of blockchain stuff. We can talk more about that.
Definitely. And so just to touch further on that, has any of that impacted the growth of the market at all? You know, even just get these startups getting investments to grow. I mean, what does that do to the growth here?
Yes, growth, but I think the hype cycle is a little bit still ahead. I think by the end of 2024, we'll likely see the sort of killer app where people start taking seriously the idea of having things on chain, as we say. Right now, it's a lot of enterprises dabbling in the space. Maybe they'll offer an NFT along with the product that they sell so that they can authenticate the authenticity of the product, as an example. A lot of fakes out there. The sort of next realm is this idea of linking RWAs, or real world assets, putting them on chain. Smart contracts. The idea that if I'm selling you a house, I should be able to log in with my key that validates who I am. Forget about all the nonsense with security. I say who I am, you trust me. Just like a Bitcoin wallet knows that it's my wallet because I have the passcode. You and I can then transact and move things back and forth without an agent, without anyone else involved. So it's very, very friction light when it comes to transactions. That's a huge part of it. Now, the key is regulation. So in order to adopt it, governments have to decide what's going to be okay and what isn't going to be okay, and we're a long ways from there.
How do we get something like this off the ground, though, when everything has to be linked? You know, we need to come up with these standards. So is what we're seeing right now from just companies who are offering blockchain solutions, is that real blockchain, or is that just a buzzword we're hearing about?
No, it's real blockchain, but if you're dealing with someone now that has a Web 3 front end or a Web 3 side thing that they're doing, that is a blockchain record that's being used, absolutely. But it's not the database of record for their transactions. So Citibank, I'm just making this up, could come up with something where you get an NFT that is a customized image of a credit card. But your credit card transactions are not going to be fulfilled via blockchain anytime soon. And remember, although blockchain is separate from crypto, a lot of what people get excited about is the idea that using blockchain is going to facilitate money transfer via cryptocurrency. And that's where regulatory agencies come in and say, well, hold on a minute. If I can't see the transaction, I can't tax it, I can't validate that you're not money laundering. So there are a lot of things that go into this. But right now, it's a little more hype than it is action.
Definitely. Well, we saw that with generative AI, so who knows what could come in the coming year. Absolutely. Well, thanks so much for your time today. It was great to see you here out on the show floor, and we'll turn to you guys in the studio for more.
So there's so many aspects of Web3 as we've been hearing about. There's the crypto aspect, there's the security aspect, and there's the domain aspect. Unstoppable Domains is a fascinating company. Lisa Martin is with them right now.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the 6.5 live at the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas 2024. I'm media host Lisa Martin. Pleased to be joined by a fantastic guest next. We have the Chief Operating Officer of Unstoppable Domains, Sandy Carter. Sandy, it's so great to have you. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Lisa.
So, known you a long time, followed your amazing career. Talk a little bit about Unstoppable Domains, what it is that you guys do, and what attracted you to this company.
Yeah, so Unstoppable Domains is a digital identity platform. So it's essentially taking everything about you, who you are, and putting it online in a digital format. And what really attracted me to it was the underpinning technology, which is blockchain based, and we use a lot of AI tools to really drive into some of these new areas, which I think are fascinating. But probably most important is the fact that with your own digital identity on blockchain, you now own your own data and you own your digital identity. And that was such a powerful concept to me versus a company owning it.
Definitely. Well, that's a huge concern that we all have. We all see data breaches, leaks happen. They're in the news constantly and nobody wants to be the next one. But what you guys are doing from a security perspective is transformative.
Absolutely, and I love it because, you know, you can now have almost like a LinkedIn for Web3 that has verifiable and certifiable content. So it can prove you're not an AI bot, that you're a real person. It also can have what we call soul-bound tokens, which means you can't transfer them away, that prove that you went to a certain university or that you've done certain things like gone to the Super Bowl or not. Things that, you know, we know on LinkedIn that people maybe stretch the truth just a little bit on.
You know, as we see now more than ever, this convergence of technologies, more than ever, where maybe two seemingly unrelated technologies are being used together. Talk about that convergence and also what's the impact? Why is it so important?
Yeah, so it's really interesting to me because I've been working in artificial intelligence since 2013, and I know a lot of people are like, oh no, ChatGPT hasn't been around that long. And then in blockchain since 2019. And I do see these two technologies converging. And what do I mean by that? Well, one of the big challenges that AI has today are fakes, right? We all saw, you know, the Pope in the puffer jacket that really wasn't the Pope, or Tom Hanks on a commercial for dental supplies, which really wasn't Tom Hanks. How do you verify that? And the blockchain is a technology that's perfect for that. So we do see a lot of the convergence of these technologies, AI in particular, spatial computing, and blockchain. In fact, I just wrote a book called The Tiger and the Rabbit, which is all about the convergence of these three technologies and how companies need to think about forming teams to make sure that they're taking advantage of that convergence.
That leads me into the next question in terms of leadership and culture. A lot of folks are, you know, we saw last year in 2023, work was really transformed. Hello, automation. But a lot of organizations are still on old principles or old strategies. How do you, with Web3 growing at such a great pace, how do you see organizations really modifying their culture so that their leaders are really taking advantage of these emerging technologies that have safety at the core?
Yeah, I think it's a fascinating question. In fact, I think it's a better question than the technology itself, is the culture and the leadership principles that need to be behind it. So one of the things I did for my book is I studied 400 different companies and then a whole set of individuals who are using and leveraging these technologies. And what I found was those that were ahead were not necessarily the best at tech, but they were the best at forming teams that took advantage of the tech. And that's the title of the book. It's The Tiger and the Rabbit. Because most companies do tiger teams. They form a team to attack a problem, right? Like a tiger attacks, and to fix something. But the teams, they're the companies that were the best at leveraging technology for a business outcome were those that they had these rabbit teams that moved really fast, that looked at convergence, that stayed together, that had different leadership principles and a different culture. And in fact, one of the examples I use in the book is Kate from Pepsi, who Pepsi really follows this, and we see the great advances Pepsi's made in using tech for consumer experience and consumer advantage.
And that's what we want. As consumers, we have an expectation that our experiences will be seamless, they'll be relevant, they'll be personalized, and they'll be real time. But we also have an expectation that they're going to be secure. And that's one of the biggest holes right now and challenges that we all have is in our business lives and our personal consumer lives. But it sounds to me like Unstoppable is really ahead of the game there and really helping ensure from a verification, a validation perspective, that things are what they are. Do you see that going a long way to help change the consumer's mindset on AI? There's been so much negativity on AI in the press for such a long time. We in tech get to see so many of the good applications, which I love. But one of the things I'm hearing at CES 2024 is the mindset is changing a little bit on the consumer side of being, okay, I'm starting to see a lot more real world applications that will benefit my life, where AI is going to be positive. Do you see that sort of cultural influence happening in the consumer space as well?
I do. I think that I think people are seeing hashtag AI for good, but in order for AI to continue in the good stream, there has to be a lot more focus on responsible AI.
Absolutely.
And that does mean safety, things like applying blockchain for trust verification, making sure that you're talking to a real person and not a bot. Just recently, I saw, going across a lot of social media channels, a picture of a young girl who was calling her mother, and it really wasn't her, it was fake. So leveraging these technologies and the convergence of them to prove what is real and what isn't, I think is really important as we move forward.
It's incredibly important. And I think, to your point, it will go a long way to assuaging concerns that the mass public has about AI, because we know, we all interact with it every day. Whether we know it or not, we are. I mean, you look at the show, automotive, robotics, wearables, digital health technologies, things that are helping us improve our sleep or our mental health. We're all interacting with it. I think just more awareness needs to be made about the technologies underpinning the secure, the validation, the verification factor.
That's right. And I think, like you think about a company like Unstoppable, which is a startup, leveraging Gen AI and AI technologies can help us punch above our weight class, right? Because we can use it for documentation of code or for answering better customer support questions. So there is a lot of good. We just have to balance it with that safety measure. And it's one of the reasons why on our Unstoppable profiles that we have a safety score. Showcasing, smart contracts and things like that, that show to a consumer, this is a safe person to deal with, and this is a person too.
That's incredibly important.
Mm-hmm.
How far are we from the consumerization of this to where it's going to be commonplace, to where I'm going to have it, my colleagues are going to have it, everybody on LinkedIn is going to have it? What do you think, roadmap-wise, where are we?
Wow, if I really knew the answer to that question, I could make billions of dollars, but I'll give you my guess. I think we're probably 5 to 7 years away. And here's why. Right now, the technology is amazing, but we're still talking about the technology, yes. Lisa. We're not talking about the outcomes. And that means that there's still a lot of education that has to go along. There needs to be a couple of, what I call killer apps that really showcase that safety and the power to everyone. And so I think to get that mass adoption, unless we have that education, it's going to be a little while. So I think probably 5 to 7 years. It's one of the reasons I love coming to CES. You have this view into the future, right? You're seeing 5 to 7 years in the future. And it shows you what's to come so you can get ready for it.
I love that. This is my first CES.
Oh, no way.
It blew my mind. I've done so many enterprise shows, as you know, that's where I know you from. And just 4,000 exhibitors, 1,200 startups. This is the 58th year. To say that you're a kid in a candy store is an understatement. Absolutely. Because to your point, you are seeing into the future, and it's so exciting. One of the things that I'm going to be very curious to follow now that I'm a CES alumna is which technologies actually manifest. I was looking up at Rivian the other day, and Rivian was only here for the first time in 2020. And now they're on the road. I live in Silicon Valley, and everyone except me has a Rivian. So it's going to be interesting to see, if we're looking into the future, what's going to manifest into actuality. And to your point, maybe a couple of great killer apps that really show and transform globally this mindset.
Yeah, and I'm hoping Unstoppable will be one of those. Today we have 4 million different digital identities out there. Our mission is to put a digital identity into the hands of every person, which is 7 billion people, but 4 million still places us as the #1 digital identity platform. So I'm betting that we're going to be one of those in the future, but I do think it's going to take a longer time before we get that widespread adoption.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you guys are doing a lot on the awareness and education front that is really paramount to making this entire thing successful. Last question for you, Sandy. Predictions for 2024. What's your maybe top prediction of things that you might think we might see where AI is concerned, Web3, spatial?
So, I mean, one of my big ones is I do think we're going to see more of this trust verification. With so many deep fakes out there, I do feel like it's going to become an issue. I mean, even today, right before I walked in the door, there was a fake Twitter account created for the SEC saying that the BTC ETF, for Bitcoin, had gone through. People were tweeting it, it was being posted everywhere, and then all of a sudden they came out and they said, no, that is a fake AI created account. And so I do think that with so much fake out there, and people want to know trust, right? They trust. Trust is so important that I do think that this trust verification, having blockchain help verify what is AI generated versus what is person generated or human generated, I think that's going to be my #1 prediction for 2024. We're going to see it more and everywhere.
Well, we're going to keep our eyes on that, and you on Forbes and everywhere else that you are. Trust is currency these days. We know that.
I agree.
Sandy, it's been such a pleasure having you on the 6-5 Live. Thank you for joining us, sharing what Unstoppable is doing, and really how you are poised to really change the globe. We love this. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to be right back with more great content on the 6-5 Live from CES 2024. After a short break, stick around.
If we are a real gamer, we would get the full outfit. But what you're saying is we can get by just with this. Or do people buy all the devices?
Yes.
It's really a full body experience.
Full body tracking device, yes.
Okay, interesting. Where are the sensors on here?
Every sensor built in the sensors inside. It's quite small. The name is IMU. It's an accelerometer and a gyroscope and a magnetometer. It's built into the small body.
Is the metaverse still a thing? It seemed like it was a huge topic a year ago, and now it's kind of faded from the headlines, and I'm wondering, is it still, did it ever come to fruition?
Yeah, that's true. And 2 years ago and 1 year ago, metaverse is a big trend in the media, but actual user is quite raising up every year. So we are focusing into them, so not focusing into the, just a topic or buzzword. So we have the customer, and the customers are still enjoying the metaverse, and they are raising up the population. So that's quite happy for us.
Over 120,000 people come to the CES show. Why? They want to see companies in all kinds of companies. Audio companies. You've got companies here that are in the business of lighting and power. You've got, what else? Chef robots. That's right, chef robots. That's the kind of consumer electronic technology you've got going on. And that's not all. Of course, you've got this.
Hey everybody, I'm back on the show floor at CES 2024, now talking about a subject that's always big at CES, cars, mobility, lots of trends in that space. Let's turn to Future Group Research Director Olivier Blanchard. How's it going?
It's going great.
Is it really?
Yeah, yeah, I know. Ask me that in 2 days.
Exactly.
Yeah, we still have a lot of ground to cover.
Well, you are covering probably what's one of the biggest trends here. And when we say mobility, a lot of people are like, what is that, phones? Because we all think of cars at CES, but cars are taking on, and transportation is taking on a lot of different forms today. So how would you define mobility?
Well, mobility is mobility. So it's vehicles, right? So typically, because the industry is focused mainly on cars, we think primarily of mobility as cars. So it's ADAS, it's cockpit solutions, it's basically the intelligent or software-defined vehicle. But more and more, and this is one of the trends here this year, you're seeing a lot of these technologies, a lot of the IP and solutions shift from cars to two-wheel vehicles, whether it's motorcycles, bicycles, scooters, into the space that we'd like to call micro-mobility. And obviously all the semiconductor companies, software companies, all that churn of the ecosystem is focusing on finding ways to address some of those layers and use cases.
Well, it's interesting when you look at the way our cities are changing and how they're meeting that demand, or maybe the show here is meeting the demand by our cities, but I would argue there's a real war against cars as you look at the low emission zones that cities are implementing, and the bike lanes, and the food delivery all on those e-bikes. How are we making these devices smart in the way that cars are becoming smart?
Right. So I think you could argue that there's been a war in pedestrians in the United States specifically, because the infrastructure here is very different from other parts of the world. And so we've always prioritized cars in the United States, at least since the 40s. But what we're finding is that as populations grow, as urban centers get more dense, congestion's a problem. And so we're trying to look for ways that the rest of the world is addressing these issues. And what we're finding is that when you have properly designed city centers, properly designed roadways with protected lanes for cyclists, for pedestrians, for other forms of micromobility, it's actually good for the local economy. It's good for people's health. It works better. And so on the one hand, we're seeing a shift, obviously, that everybody knows about with cars towards EVs. And that's just an effort mainly to disconnect from fossil fuels as much as possible, or at least transition away from them a little bit. But also, as people realize that they have other options to go to the store, to stay fit, to go to work, and some of this infrastructure changes to accommodate bicycles, e-bikes, and other forms of transportation, people are starting to adopt them. And so you have all these companies basically saying, okay, you might not necessarily want to ride a motorcycle because you don't want to commit to the risk and the expense and the skill sets. And you might not want to ride a traditional bicycle to work or to the shop because you're not that fit, or you don't want to get there sweaty, or for whatever reasons. So let's find some solution in the middle, which is let's put some motors in the bicycles, let's make them more comfortable, let's add some utility to this, so more baskets, more space to put your bags or your groceries or your pets or whomever. And on top of that, since we have this connected world now with our phones and our watches and all of our devices, why don't we bring some intelligence into those vehicles as well, same way that we've done in the cars. So you're starting to see a lot more connectivity with two-wheel vehicles and micromobility. Part of that is for theft protection, for instance, also for asset tracking. So say that you're a company that rents out e-bikes in a city, and you want to know where all your bikes are. You put a chip inside all the bikes, they're trackable, you know where they are. So there's a lot of room in the form factor of the e-bike, because it's thicker, it's bigger, it's more adaptable, to put a lot of that technology in there. And so even for safety reasons, we're starting to see some vehicle-to-vehicle and vehicle-to-infrastructure solutions get into the bicycles. So what that means is that, say you're a driver, you're in your giant truck, you're driving through a city, but you don't necessarily see where all the other vehicles are. And you're sharing the road not only with cars and other trucks and pedestrians, but also bicycles, scooters, etc. If they have a connectivity solution built in that essentially pings their location and their rate of travel and their direction to your vehicle, it'll be able to tell, okay, there's 3 bicycles coming up, or there's a bicycle or a motorcycle in my blind spot, I shouldn't make a left turn here. And so that type of intelligence built in to all of these vehicles, not just cars, also makes the roads safer for everyone. And I think that's one of the more exciting aspects of this.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting how everything is becoming more personalized and hopefully more organized with fewer accidents. That would be a dream. But let's talk about the vendors now innovating in this space. You mentioned the e-bikes, and I know Qualcomm recently talked about how they're putting their Snapdragon digital chassis into the e-bike. You're seeing Mobileye later. Let's talk about the leaders here who are innovating with bringing the technology onto these different types of mobility solutions.
Yeah. So it's been really interesting to watch the market evolve over the last few years. because it's still somewhat fragmented. So you have a lot of different solutions that can go into a software-defined vehicle. So typically the way that we sort of organize them, you have cockpit solutions. So basically what it means, you're driving the car, you have your cockpit. All of these different solutions usually form like one part of the car's design and system of systems. You also have infotainment, which fits into that as well, but also extends to the passengers of the vehicle. So that could be screens, speakers, all kinds of solutions. You have connectivity, obviously you want the cars to be connected, so you have a lot of connectivity solutions that go in there. Usually, even though they attach to different sockets, there's a master sort of like connectivity solution that controls everything. And then there's ADAS, and ADAS is the one that everybody wants to talk about. It's the sexy technology. It's basically advanced driver assistance systems or assisting systems. And part of that is autopilot. It doesn't necessarily have to be autopilot. I feel like this year we're going to start to see a split between overall ADAS as driver assist technologies and automated driving specifically, sort of branching off a little bit and becoming a little bit more specific. And so there's such a layer cake of technology providers, from the SoC and silicon platform providers all the way to the companies that make switches and wires and everything else, with a lot of software layers in between. So one of the big things I see this year, though, is the semiconductor companies are getting really serious. Qualcomm obviously has been in the space for a while, and they are getting very close to having what I would call a full stack of solutions. So they have cockpit, connectivity, infotainment, and now their ADAS system is getting a boost this year. And I think one of the things I'm looking for at this CES is the details of their partnership with BMW. Because BMW, I think, is the first partner to really sort of incorporate all of those elements into their new vehicles. So that'll be interesting. But AMD is also here. AMD is putting silicon in cars. Intel, obviously, with Mobileye, has been in the space for a while, and kind of like a leader in the space, especially in ADAS with their camera and object detection systems. I think they're one of the companies to beat. So it'll be interesting to see how Qualcomm's ADAS system starts to make Mobileye nervous. I don't know, we'll see. It doesn't have to be a battle royale. But what's interesting is this competition between the semiconductor companies, as it heats up and as it shifts towards ADAS and these more complex systems, gives a lot more opportunities for choice for the OEMs, the car OEMs. And so what I will also be looking at, tracking in the next year, actually in the next 2-3 years, is how this all shakes out. Because right now, the company to beat is Tesla when it comes to ADAS and just integrated systems. And there aren't many vendors out there that have a full stack of solution like what Tesla has built, from basically silicon all the way to data. Qualcomm is trying to build that for their OEM partners. And so that's a really interesting thing to look at. But then you have players like Mobileye that have been extremely specific, very deep, very detailed on solving specific problems. And their Mobileye solutions are much better than the competition, but they don't necessarily have a full stack to build around that. And so OEMs kind of have to negotiate that architecture of, would I rather go with a full stack and then here and there add the very specialized, unique technologies and solutions that are going to make my vehicles better or safer, or do I just build my own like a bunch of Lego blocks? Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. A lot of mobility trends clearly on display, so we have more in the show coming up. Stay tuned.
Fascinating stuff, so much interesting stuff. I think, to me, one of the most interesting things happening at the Consumer Electronics Show is the companies we associate with hard tech, old tech, PCs, cell phones, if you can call those old tech, are the companies that are driving all sorts of stuff, especially in mobility. Companies, great big companies, we heard from Intel later. What about Qualcomm, a giant force in the phone business? And yes, there's lots more mobility than phones. Let's take a look at Qualcomm.
Nakul, it's great to see you here at CES 2024. How have you been?
Great, good to see you again, Dan.
Yeah, it's good to have you here. It's always good to catch up with you. CES, huge moment in every automaker's world right now. You see pretty much, 130,000 people converge, and if not the top thing that people want to see. It's what's going on in automotive. And I would say the trend line, AI, 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 AI. But in automotive, you talk about autonomy, you're talking about infotainment, you're talking about digital cockpit. AI is going to change it all. So this year has to be another big year for Qualcomm. Tell me a little bit about what the company is talking about here this year at CES in terms of automotive.
Yeah, CES has been an automotive show for us for a number of years. This year it's Snapdragon digital chassis with the Gen AI twist. That's what you're going to see a lot of. But no, I think for the company, AI has obviously become very central to a lot of things that are going on, PCs, phones, and absolutely automotive. We've been on a great journey on the automotive side of the house because we've been building this business, this platform for a number of years. And automotive is, as an industry, going through a fairly complex set of changes because the pace of innovation, especially as you look at how China is moving, especially as you look at how the EV transition is happening, there is just a lot that automakers have to accomplish to be able to be competitive. And for that, they need platforms, they need partners, they need the ability to be able to move fast. And I think we've built a platform that allows them to be able to go do that. And we are seeing that in our numbers, we are seeing that in the wins that we are getting, we are seeing that in the trust that our customers are showing to us.
Yeah, so this year you're sitting in the studio with me. Last year we did this interview, we did an interview. It was you and me sat outside of the Snapdragon demo vehicle. Very cool, futuristic vehicle. I think you and I have had a chance to sit in it a few times around the world now. We've sat here, we did it in Germany, and every time we sit down, things have proliferated and moved forward a little bit. Yeah. What's kind of progress looking like in this industry, over the last, I feel like about 2 years ago, you really, maybe 2.5, I think you probably say longer, but the last couple of years have been huge for Qualcomm. You saw your design pipeline go from, a little over 10 billion to almost $30 billion. I've seen design wins from just about every major OEM, strength in China, strength here domestically. But what are the key technology drivers that are, you say that are creating this momentum, and what's kind of happening even in this last year that's really notable?
Well, looking back, it is pretty straightforward and logical, but the strategy that we put out for ourselves was we are a technology company and we develop a lot of different technologies. Some of these technologies are embodied into products that can be used as is by a car. Others need to actually be adapted for the car. So we took a big step back and we said, what's our starting point? Where do we really need to start? And it all came kind of down to the car is going to change as a platform. It's going to be a mobility platform. It's going to have a lot of different use cases. It's going to be innovated upon by many different customers in various parts of the world. So we have to build something that is very versatile, scales up, still embodies all of the key technology that we have, but it has to be something that has to work for the automotive industry. And there are two things that are very important, safety and quality. And safety and quality, if you don't have that, this is not a business that you really want to be thinking about very seriously. So we made those decisions 4 or 5 years ago. And the semiconductor crisis hit, it became very clear to the automakers that they had to make sure they had partners who they could rely on, not just for technology and support and features, but they are there when they need them. We've prioritized automotive all the way up to the top in terms of which industries we focus on. So today we find ourselves in this situation where we're basically focused on two major areas of differentiation. One is connectivity, the other is compute. And if you think of those two key blocks, computation is becoming key for the car because it is becoming this product that keeps absorbing more and more technology because the use cases are endless. And of course, connectivity is something that you absolutely need. On top of that, we've been building a ton of software. We've been building a ton of applications. We are, for example, we are building an ADAS stack. Qualcomm is getting into the business of developing an autonomous driving stack, a safety stack, something that you would say, what's a smartphone company doing building a stack? Well, we are no longer just a smartphone company. We are also, going kind of in that direction. We are engaged with various ecosystem partners. From SaaS, you'll hear about Salesforce, you'll hear about something we're doing with JP Morgan to be able to go open up the platform for SaaS partners and automakers to be able to bring differentiators onto the platform. The cockpit is changing completely. You will see from us how Gen AI is actually ready on our platforms for 2024. We have silicon that is in commercial vehicles, in production vehicles in 24, that is ready for Gen AI. It's a software update, and that's done. So for us, this is one of those things where you really have to be able to look at all of the assets that you have in place, have a long-term strategy, and then have the customer base trust you to be able to go implement that platform.
First of all, I'm glad you pointed out the diversification. It's important you reiterate that often. I can say as an analyst, I've been talking to both the street and to the market about Qualcomm's diversification, and I think the message is starting to land. I think just last week I was on CNBC and I was talking to them. They were actually asking about your XR and the innovation, which I, by the way, expect some of that XR to find its way into the CAR. Yeah, you like what I did there? I practiced that one earlier.
Very clever.
Yeah, it was good. But I expect to see that all these technologies start to find, you could start to see some of the AI PC capabilities becoming part of the Gen AI inside the car, because an NPU is going to find its way into the automobile, and you're going to start to see, and then you're talking about SaaS and applications, the world's converging. And I think that's, you guys call it like the connected intelligent edge, or I've heard Cristiano refer to it that way. It's all coming together. And so I'm glad you caught that. I'm glad you reiterated that because it's really important. But I also wanted you to reiterate a little bit about that Gen AI. I heard you say that. Most popular trend in 2023. Yeah. In fact, I didn't have to talk about anything else to the media the entire year. Thank you. But you said Gen AI is finding its way into the digital cockpit. Can you just talk a little bit more about what that experience may look like, Nakul?
Yeah, let's go back a couple of years. When we started to think about designing compute for the car, ADAS was very important for us. So we said, okay, you need to be able to build AI for ADAS. And should we build two completely different pieces of silicon, or should we just build one common piece of silicon? We can use it for cockpit, we can use it for ADAS. We went with the latter decision. So the platforms that we build for the car are not separate between what you put into ADAS versus what you put in the cockpit. What that allows us to do is to essentially have the hardware, the headroom that you need to be able to bring in something like Gen AI. It's already built into our cockpit solutions. It has been for like 3 years now. So, you mentioned the NPU. We over-dimension automotive silicon because we have to be able to support a much longer life cycle. Things will change, new features will come in, that's going to need more performance. But very importantly, the NPU that you highlight and other AI-related blocks, we already have that in the silicon. It's already there. In cars that will be rolling out in 24, those cars have that capability built in. So then the question is, okay, how do you use Gen AI in the car? And I'm sure you've covered this across so many different companies and so many different use cases. But the way that I think about the car is as follows. It requires more than one person to be using it. The people that use the car could be different people. There could be multiple people present. The context in the car is very important because it is obviously a device that takes you from A to B. So that becomes a necessary input into what we're going to go do with Gen AI. The use cases are very broad. It's not a productivity use case. It's not a use case that is tied to the things that you might consider as, I'm drafting an email and please come in. It's not those things. You will see a few things that are super interesting. For example, we have virtualized the service manual for the vehicle. It is indexed through Gen AI, and you can have a conversation with your car through a network that is deployed in the vehicle. We've taken Llama 7 billion. That's running locally. Yep. And you can now have a conversation, and you can ask the vehicle questions about, giving context. Hey, I see a diagnostic code. I see this alarm light turn on. What does it mean? And you get a response that is picked up all locally. There is no cloud involved in something like this. That's one simple example.
How much time I tried to find the temperature,
TPM.
the TPMS. My daughter's car, because every car is so different. Yes. I mean, just this weekend, I was literally in the menus and I was going to YouTube trying to find demos, and it was like even by year, it was different. So you're saying you could basically go to it, use a natural language processing, talk to the car, say, I see the sensor, tell me what it means.
I think, Dan, the part that is very interesting, and all of us can relate to this because we are all, we all experience these things every day. The idea of being able to understand how a consumer experiences the car as a product from the edge is something that automakers have always struggled with. What do people like? What do they not like? What can we change? If we can change it, how do we go change it? And one thing that is changing, first of all, because cars are becoming so software first, so digital. Secondly, there is so much compute capability available. So you're not designing the car for just enough hardware. There is actually plenty of room to be able to do more. And then when you bring intelligence from the edge and make it available back into the cloud, and GenAI is a great tool in terms of how to go do that, it changes the way that you roll services out. And you will see that there are a number of automakers that are very sophisticated technologically, they're very sophisticated in terms of how to go build a software product. These are things that are going to come very naturally to them. They're just going to think of the car as a digital product that has so much more potential. And then, of course, there are the traditional OEMs that have to figure out how to make this an advantage. We find ourselves situated very well because we are designing platforms that cater to both ends. We are learning very quickly from the customers that know how to move the needle, that know how to push the envelope in terms of how do I bring something that nobody else can bring as quickly as possible. Those are who we are catering, who we are designing our platforms for. And then, of course, we work with everybody else to make sure that we can accelerate this. So I'm super excited, especially because the timeline between when the technology can actually be converted into a product, that we have shortened. We will see that in 2024 in cars.
Here's an opportunity for the industry. I believe the design cycle is too long. I don't believe people have the patience. I won't speak to specifics, Nicole, but I have a car that's a 2022 that actually shared the electronics of the 2012 version of the same car. I love the car, I bought it, but what I'm saying is the electronics, it's an abomination that you actually have 10-year-old and the cockpit was not updated. Now, if you're basically telling me what I think I want to hear and what the market wants to hear is, even as cars could minimally make maybe physical designs, and people have kind of gotten used to this with maybe like the Teslas, but other OEMs are going to be able to follow that path of being able to dynamically overhaul cars without maybe having huge redesigns, both inside, outside, cockpit, infotainment, even the software of the ADAS and the programming. Cars can be completely revolutionized in every year, every couple of years. Is that where you see it going? Is the cycle going to get much shorter to enable manufacturers to be more innovative and more quickly?
I mean, clearly it is not a technology problem. Mostly the problem has to do with what kind of legacy you come from, what dependencies you have built into the way that you design a platform, how separable are they? Can you build a platform that is faster moving and leave the other platforms behind? Are you a big company? Are you a small company? How much sharing you did? If you look at some of the very nimble automakers that we work with, they are moving at the cadence you're talking about. Every 2.5 years, it's a brand new hardware upgrade, and the previous generation software works on the next generation hardware, vice versa. It is looking very much like what you might expect in consumer devices. So it's not like, now obviously moving on to an EV platform makes that straightforward because it's a cleaner architecture, it's a newer architecture. When you're dealing with automakers that have to manage both and that have built architectures that obviously span both types of powertrains, there is legacy, there is complexity. So look, I think what you are asking for as a consumer is not lost on any automaker. The question is how quickly and with what approach do you get there? We are seeing all kinds of approaches. We are seeing automakers cordon off certain regions where they want to be able to move faster and do unique designs. We are seeing automakers pick some tiers of their vehicles and just design them differently. But everybody's going to have a slightly different approach to it because it is more than just technology that comes out of it.
And a quick kind of final question here, Nicole, is, the alignment of kind of proprietary IP from the automaker and the, custom sort of stack and capabilities, I call it, the kind of, it's not a black box. You guys have a building blocks approach. Enables them to keep kind of what's unique, quickly pair it with the Snapdragon platform for automotive. Is that what you're looking to do, is to basically enable all these OEMs to be able to have their proprietary but build quickly so that they can stay custom but not have to go through all the pain that they've historically gone through to be custom?
Yeah, it's actually a great question. a lot of the new conversations that we are having with automakers are not only what you described, which is we provide building blocks on top of which they develop theirs, but where they would like to influence our building blocks, or where they would like our building blocks to be modified slightly, but just for them, to be created very uniquely for their requirements. We are getting into conversations where we are licensing some of our building blocks to automakers, and some of those building blocks may actually be semiconductor agnostic because they want to be able to get a faster start. They want to be able to mix what we have with what they have and create something new from that. So, the business is moving in this direction where we are becoming true partners into what it will take for this chassis to change, because fundamentally keep in mind that automakers have limited amount of, the traditional automakers especially, they are learning all of these new skills very quickly, but there is still a lot of work ahead of them in terms of how to become very adept, very quick, and I think that's where we feel like we've been able to actually make a big impact with the strategy that we've had.
Cool. Thanks so much for sitting down with me.
Absolutely. Great to see you again.
Great to see you.
And we are back with more 6.5 live action here at CES 2024. One of the big topics we've seen this entire week is the AI PC, really cemented here by Intel at their event, which I had the pleasure and the honor of being on stage with your partners. Caitlin, great to see you.
Great to see you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, I think you're a first-time 6.5er and first-time 6.5 Live. This is great. So exciting.
Let's do it.
So I want to dive right in. I was on stage, again, with all your partners and MJ, excuse me, Michelle Holtenhouse Johnson, excuse me, for all those who are counting out there. What are some of the incredible devices and capabilities that new Core Ultra can deliver?
Yeah, it was a really exciting day yesterday. I think you did a great job. We had an industry panel of really our top OEMs, Microsoft. Yes. The industry is quite excited. This is not just a normal processor launch. Yes. So as we think about bringing AI to the market in the PC, it requires software and hardware innovation. And so it requires the industry to all lean in to bring these solutions to customers. So I saw a ton of energy around the segment yesterday, and I think we're just going to build on it. It's the beginning of a long couple-year journey to really get started, and it's a new inflection point.
Yeah, I feel a different energy now, and I guess, there's good, bad things about experience. Okay, maybe I'm a little bit old. So yeah. I was around for the dawn, the internet PC, sub $1,000 PC, multimedia PC, moving from desktop to more mobility, and then thin and light mobility. And it really did take an ecosystem of everybody to band together, put their weapons down as competitors, right? Which everybody did on stage really nicely, and see the big picture, which is better experiences for users, an economic opportunity for the industry, that's important. And I do see that with the AI PC. A lot of cool devices. I think the amount of Meteor Lake or Core Ultra designs, 700 I think was one of the numbers that was out there, but you also had really cool devices on stage, and each of your partners, HP, Dell, and Lenovo, had cool devices on stage. Can you talk about, maybe give some highlights of the devices that are based on Core Ultra?
Yeah, absolutely. We have over 230 Core Ultra designs, 700 Intel Core and Core Ultra this year. And every OEM is innovating. So they're all putting their own unique spin on how they're going to bring AI to the market. But I think that the beauty of this is that it becomes more personal in how you think about your PC. So they're all thinking about their own software. They're thinking about the third-party applications that can deliver this. Yeah. They're working with Microsoft as well to deliver their capabilities. So it's going to come in a combination of things with each OEM, but all the systems, thin and light, sleek, premium designs. So they're also 2x the graphics, 40% better battery life gen on gen, so really amazing systems.
Yeah, so maybe let's narrow in. Let's talk consumer first. Would this be naturally things like better gaming? All consumers do productivity things, whether even when they're gamers, they're doing something. They're messaging with each other. Are these the type of applications that can be accentuated and optimized by the new processors?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you think about Core Ultra, it actually has a NPU, so that's what's new. You have a CPU, GPU, and NPU, which really just means it can run AI workloads efficiently. Yeah. You can do that in gaming. You can do that. A lot of our Meteor Lake systems, thin and light, can do gaming and everyday, but a lot of creator use cases. If you think about consumer, video editing, really fast, way more creative. For people like me who maybe aren't creative every day, there's music applications, there's text to image. You can create new images just by writing what you want to see. So it just makes the idea of creating much simpler and much faster.
That's good. And how about on the productivity? So let's be narrow. Business users, you floated Evo out there, but how does the new processor line help business users?
Yeah, I'm actually really excited about the commercial use cases. Yeah. I will say I'm a busy working mom of 3. I could be much more productive in my daily life at work. So the idea of AI coming in, being your personal assistant, the fact that I still read emails one at a time, is a good example where it just should be more seamless. There's opportunities for it to search files in your system, in your companies, way more efficiently, to kind of learn your patterns and be able to serve you content, help create PowerPoint and different content that you need, emails, meeting minutes, really much more automatically. So there's some great use cases in commercial that I'm quite excited about.
So we talked a little bit about the AI PC-ness of it. It really is going to be an evolution. I mean, you're delivering value today. Things will get better. The ecosystem will come in with much more mature software and use cases. And I really think we're on a, first of all, I called the super cycle on your stage. I can do that as an analyst. Probably starting in the second half of 24, beginning of 25, when it really starts to pick up steam. I'm curious, is there anything of the AI-ness of the AI PC that is, I don't know, one of your crowd favorites or one of the use cases that you see as phenomenal? The sign language demo was striking. I know that hit my heart a lot.
Yeah, we saw it yesterday, but just the idea that someone could be doing sign language on video and having that translated real time, and then the other person is talking, but the conversation on the screen is very seamless. That was just a great example of things you don't even think about in your everyday life, but it matters so much to people that need that. So new use cases, that's a great example. I just think communication in general, the idea that we're going to collaborate more easily, we're going to communicate more effectively, we're going to really, some of that sort of work that could be more automated will be more automated.
So it takes village, takes partnerships. We talked about Dell, HP, and Lenovo. We also had Microsoft on stage. Can you talk a little bit about what you're doing with Microsoft in 2024 to, lack of a better term, make a market, which takes not only technical capability, but also sales and marketing muscle?
Yeah, absolutely. We've been working obviously with Microsoft for decades, but they have really been excited about AI as we have, and have been investing for a while now. So the idea that we can't bring AI to market without the software and hardware coming together. So we've been developing, they're really working on, obviously Windows 11, they're working on their Copilot as well. There's great use cases, and so that has been co-developed. That is a partnership that we'll build on, we'll continue to build features on all year, for sure. So I think there's lots of innovation that continues to come, and then we work with them on go-to-market. We're trying to make the buying journey simpler. It's not easy. There's so much choice out there in the market, but we've been working with Microsoft to really make sure our investments are in the right places, that we're really helping it be simpler for shoppers. So there's lots of go-to-market initiatives we do as well.
Yeah, I had somebody subtweet me yesterday, which I appreciate. It was another analyst that said, hey, this AI PC stuff is great, but we need to get the messaging right. And I think that the industry needs to rally together to make sure that it's saying the right thing at the right point, right? Because you oversell, overmarket a capability, and capabilities is like, oh gosh, this AI PC thing, not as great as it should be. So having that connectedness, and as the experiences are improving over time. By the way, my next guest is Matt Barlow. Somebody you might know in that realm, talking about sales and marketing for Windows, and obviously the two of you have to be collaborating at this point.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
We talked last night, actually.
Yeah. Perfect. Hey, I want to thank you for coming on the show here, and hopefully this is not the last time, but I'm super stoked about the AI PC, if it wasn't evident up there on stage, and keeping my intensity level, but also, pragmaticness, pragmatic nature as well, making sure that helping the industry align as we move forward. Congratulations on the launch.
Thank you so much.
Excellent. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in for this segment, and now we are going to throw this over to Diana, who's in the Intel booth.
All right, so another look at how AI is being embedded further into the device. Daniel Rogers, what do you have here?
Hi, Dan Rogers from the Performance Lab, and here we're going to take a look at some demonstrations of AI running locally on Core Ultra through what we call the new Neural Processing Unit, or NPU.
Okay, great. So before we saw how Microsoft Copilot was built into the device there. So would these applications or these devices be used when you don't have Microsoft Copilot? How is the outcome different?
Yeah, so AI is really this complete transformation of the PC, right? So we see it in cloud use cases. We now see it in these local use cases that execute just on your computer without any connectivity back to the cloud. Here we're using a combination of both CPU, but also the NPU, which is our newest IP.
Right. Well, the one I'm particularly worried about is this one right here, the video editing. As a video editor, I'm not too happy to see this, but I do want to learn more about it, so tell me.
Yeah, so this is a really cool demonstration. Garth will kind of walk through here in a bit. It's from a company, Wondershare, Filmora. It's a very popular application to create TikTok videos, has millions and millions of users. And here we're able to take many of the effects that would have been done either manually or through an algorithm. We're able to use the power of AI, harnessing both the CPU and the GPU to use AI algorithms to do that almost instantly.
It is wild to me how in 2023 it really all exploded onto the scene, and already we're seeing devices come to market with this kind of technology. When can consumers start to buy these devices?
Yeah, so these are in the market now. So we've already shipped millions of units out to partners, and we're ramping really aggressively here right at CES. You'll see many, many, many new notebooks from our partners featuring the Core Ultra processor. And on the software side, we know to really deliver AI, we got to have great software. So as excited as we are about the hardware, we're even more excited about how we're working with the software ecosystem to bring all these cool PC applications to users this year.
Well, clearly a PC revolution right before our eyes. Stay tuned for more information in the show to come.
Welcome back to 6.5 Live. I'm Dave Nicholson, and we are broadcasting live from CES, that's the Consumer Electronics Show 2024. We've just been talking a lot about PCs. Increasingly, our cars in the mobility sector have become essentially rolling PCs. To talk about that, to talk about what's going on in mobility, I am delighted to have a very special guest from Mongo DB, a pretty big partner of AWS, I might add, Dr. Hamza Akhtar. Welcome.
Thank you, Dave.
How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me here.
So you're absolutely welcome. We appreciate you coming to talk about mobility. Tell us about what you and AWS are showing here. How does Mongo DB fit into this space?
Yeah, of course. So Mongo DB is actually a developer data platform. It's a document-oriented database, and then we have MongoDB Atlas, which is our developer data platform offering. It can be set up on AWS. It can be as a AWS marketplace offering. And then what we are doing with AWS as our partnership is we are one of the launch partners for AWS automotive competency specifically in the automotive space, and we got it this year. And it was announced at IAA in Munich in September this year. So that means that MongoDB provides solutions, provides technology for automotive OEMs and their suppliers, tier 1, tier 2 suppliers, to build the next generation of connected vehicles, to build those software-defined vehicles. And then we provide joint offerings with AWS. We provide integration options, so you can leverage AWS technologies as well as MongoDB database plus our other offerings in MongoDB Atlas together to build that whole unified platform for the connected mobility space.
Yeah, it's been really interesting seeing how the automotive industry has increasingly been present at CES over time. Obviously, automotive, mobility, those are consumer goods. MongoDB has a long and storied history in what we think of as sort of the IT space. Now you are coming closer to that edge where that Internet of Things is increasingly including cars. How does what you do with AWS affect the consumer part of this equation? How do they benefit from what you're doing?
Yes, of course. So just a bit of a background, like my background has always been in IoT and industrial IoT space. So essentially you're trying to merge this operational technology, OT and IT together, and that gives you that sort of IoT flavor to the things. Now, what we are doing here with AWS, or in general inside automotive space, is bringing those two worlds together. And think of it as your car is generating a lot more data.
Sure.
And this is, let's say it's an OT area where you have these ECUs, you have this firmware, and then you're generating those data that's been transferred over CAN bus protocols, and then they're transmitted to the cloud, where you're running an IT application, running some sort of Gen AI application, for example, that is powering your fleet management chatbot system, for example. So MongoDB sits in the middle. It bridges the gap between OT and IT world. It brings it together. We released our new offering called Atlas for Edge this year, which allows our clients to actually put MongoDB offering, which is called Atlas Device SDK, right inside the car, and then create that synchronization of data from the car to the cloud. And how it helps the consumer, it helps them in a couple of ways. Number one, when you get a car and you want the car to be smart, you want the car to be always connected. When I got my first car, I remember it came with the mobile app, but the mobile app was very finicky. It didn't always work. I pressed remote start, it didn't work for first 4 or 5 times.
Your first car was a lot nicer than my first car, by the way. Mine had no app. But go ahead.
So there has to be a reliable connectivity from your device, let's say your phone, to the car and back. You need to be able to see the real-time status of what's happening in your car. It has to be always running, regardless whether there's internet or not, right? So it gives a very delightful experience when you're starting to use the car, and that's what we build, allow our customers to build, actually. And then when the car needs an update over their update, for example, you don't want to just receive a letter saying that your car is due for an update, take your car to the dealership and get it. It needs to be over the air, needs to be reliable. You need to get a notification on your phone. It will give you a delightful customer experience. And then finally, if there's an issue in the car, you take it to after sales. They need to be able to fix it very quickly. So we provide that operational data store. We provide the developer data platform that allows the OEMs to build these applications. And then you couple it with the Gen AI services from AWS. And what we are offering is Atlas Vector Search to do semantic search on all these technical manuals, on these audio files coming in from the car engines. So you can actually create a very powerful, unique experience for not just the OEMs, but the technicians as well as the customers as well.
Signal 65 Labs is a division of our organization, and our head of AI research talks about this idea that we are in the era of inference everywhere.
Yes.
You were talking about generative AI happening in sort of the AWS context. How much inference at the edge is happening in this space? Is that something that's important to what you're referencing? How much horsepower do you need at the edge? And yes, I use horsepower as sort of a pun since we're talking about cars here.
Yep.
How much of it is happening in the vehicle versus back in a data center?
I think most of it is right now still happening at the data center.
Okay.
We are starting to see the shift of this coming down to the car. I think that's where all the OEMs are striving to reach, and then that enables better ADAS systems, for example, and because cars more and more are generating data, they're getting better CPUs in there. The TCUs are getting powerful, so that the amount of data that's been generated is much higher than it was a few years before. So we are seeing this shift of more and more inference happening in the car. But still, in order to build that application, you still have to run a lot of tests and analysis and simulations on the cloud first to build that model that will then you can deploy it back inside the car. So what we offer is that data pipeline to help create the model, and then push it down to the vehicle.
And you're showing this here at the show. You have a demo. Tell us where you're going to be,
yes,
so that the folks that are here over the next few days can come and visit you. I want to make sure we get that in.
Yes, of course. So we are doing it today at the Covisa showcase at the Bellagio ballroom.
Okay.
And what we are showing, there is a connected vehicle demonstration with over Edge server, which is over a new offering. So what we're going to demonstrate is you have a car that is generating telemetry data, and then your mobile app that is receiving that telemetry data, and then you are in a position, in a location where there's no internet connectivity, and you can still talk to the car can talk to the mobile app, and they can still exchange information as if nothing has changed. And at the same time, when the internet connectivity comes back, all the conflicts that happen on the back end get resolved automatically.
Was this Bluetooth or Wi-Fi between the device and the car at that time, or how is that connectivity happening?
Yeah, so they are both connected to internet, to Wi-Fi or 4G, or can be any. And then using WebSockets, we're exchanging information between them. So it's all out of the box. So we're demonstrating that. We're demonstrating that how OEMs can build applications for the consumer, the mobile apps for the car that just exchange data when it's needed and not just keep exchanging the whole information again and again. How they can build meaningful real-time monitoring of over their update processes using the same technology. How can they enable predictive maintenance strategies using the same technology. So the possibilities are limitless, really, and all of this directly impacts the customer experience of using the car.
So I've got one final question, quick answer.
Yeah.
I know you mainly are concerned with making sure that stuff works the way it's supposed to now, but have you thought about like 5 years from now, what would you be absolutely delighted with if we could have it as a feature in our vehicles 5 years from now? What's the big goal that we should all be excited about?
Yeah, I think the big goal for me is a car on the road is able to exchange data seamlessly with another car, regardless of which model, brand, or type of car it is. And through all that data sharing network with the standardized data model, easy to update data model, we can enable better experiences for consumers, better traffic prediction, for example. better use of resources, for example, use of EV charging infrastructure, for example, as long as we can share information seamlessly, securely. The challenge, of course, is there are millions of cars on the road that are not equipped with the latest technology. So how do you retrofit them? And I think that is something realistic that we can strive towards and get it going.
Fantastic. Well, what I just heard, folks, is that Dr. Akhtar here just committed to 5 years from now, no more accidents on the highway anywhere. Thank you very much. We appreciate that. Let us thank you in advance. But seriously, thanks for being here to talk with us about this interesting subject. For the rest of us here at 6.5 Live, I'm Dave Nicholson. We're going to take a quick break. Join us back here in just a moment.
You have a drone here with a LiDAR solution built on top.
Yeah.
Now the LiDAR is a little bit different than what we're accustomed to seeing.
Yeah, the LiDAR is different because this one is using a green laser and it can map into the water, down to the topography, underwater topography basically.
I thought all LiDAR though could see through dark conditions, and so you're saying that the other types of LiDAR couldn't see through water?
Yes, right. Usually the traditional LiDAR that's used on cars or different topographic LiDAR, they use near infrared. But the near infrared laser is just stop on the water surface. And this one is using the green lasers that can penetrate the water surface down to the ground underneath the water.
Yeah. Well, the big talk, I guess the big debate with LiDAR is how expensive it is, so I can only imagine how pricey something like this is.
You're right, it's very expensive. But it's a very good value for money because here we are bringing a new tool that is bringing unserved needs today, because there's no other solution to map the very shallow area, which could be shallow rivers, but also the very shallow coastal area where you cannot send a boat and a sonar to map. This is where the sweet spot for the sensor is.
So, I mean, the reasons for wanting to send a boat to those shallow areas, I mean, paint pictures of use cases where this could make a dramatic impact.
Yeah, exactly. Especially because of the rising sea level that we all aware of is producing some coastal erosion, and this is changes to the area that we need to map in order to address and mitigate the risks associated to this new erosion. Sometimes houses are built very close, and a lot of things like infrastructure are built to mitigate the erosion, and we need to map this to assess the evolution of these areas.
Right. Well, data is the new oil, so you're just helping us get that precious data that otherwise is very hard to get.
Exactly, very precious data.
And the Consumer Electronics Show continues on, as does the 6.5 Live broadcast here. So many of the developments, what's the big development? Everyone's talking about AI. Look, the AI developments, the biggest developments we've seen in AI have actually started in the world of gaming. Started with the computer chip products that were originally designed for games by NVIDIA, those graphic processing units. Well, gaming is really at the center of a lot of this innovation. So a focus on gaming here at the Consumer Electronics Show, also very important, and that is why our own Diana Blass is talking about gaming right now.
So another big topic at CES 2024 is gaming. Gamers want so much power out of their PCs today, and we're learning how Intel is providing that through its Intel Core Ultra chip, here with Daniel Rogers.
Hi, Dan Rogers from the Performance Lab.
Well, thanks for joining us. It's very busy inside this booth today. Now, you were telling me all this technology that we see here, you've managed to fit it into a tiny chip.
Yeah, so one of the most exciting features of our new Core Ultra chip is we're bringing our graphics technology from discrete graphics that you see here driving this really impressive gaming demo all the way into this small chip. So you get that same feature set, that same richness of performance. We're able to bring that into this integrated factor, which we'll show you here in a minute what that can do.
Yeah, let's go check it out. All right, so now we're getting a look at what the chips can do for the graphics here. Tell us more.
Yeah, so here we got a really nice side-by-side setup. So you see on the left our previous generation 13th gen Raptor Lace-based products. And on the right, you're seeing the performance that you can achieve with the new Core Ultra processor, featuring our AI upscaling technology, XeSS, which not only delivers the native rendering performance, but stacks additional performance on top of that.
Amazing. All right. Well, back to you guys.
We're back with more. 6.5 Live continues here from the Consumer Electronics Show. And of course, the buzz is so much about AI. But most of the AI we've experienced, when we know we've experienced, has been coming from data centers and central areas where lots of compute is happening. But of course, the Consumer Electronics Show, it's all about what you can get your hands on and new devices. So joining me right now, the panel is back. Keith Townsend, Lisa Martin, Dave Nicholson with us. Glad to have you all and all your various expertise. And I wonder if we can sort of reflect on, both what you guys have done in your careers and the work that you've done, but watching this, really the first seeds of a transition of AI coming from central cloud data centers and to the edge and to devices.
Yeah, so we're expecting a lot from our edge devices, right? The ability to create art on device. But if you think about what needs to happen, the large language models or the foundational models have to be on the device, and it needs the CPU power to do that. So is that going up to the cloud and coming back down, or is it happening on device? Is there enough network bandwidth, et cetera? So a lot of complexities and a lot of companies on the show floor trying to answer these questions.
Well, you mentioned our past, and my first job was with NASA.
Yes.
Talking about like the edge of low Earth orbit, the edge. And now, of course, we have communications going constantly to and from and beyond now. So it's become something so interesting to see. But we also have these expectations in every aspect of our lives that wherever we are, whatever we have is connected 24/7.
And the experience we've gotten used to with the most connectivity will be available with the least connectivity.
Exactly.
Your thoughts?
I like the edgiest of edges myself.
Yes.
And Keith was referencing this idea of, we need more and more what I always call horsepower at the edge to do increasingly the things that we want done if we want to have that same experience in terms of latency. If you look at the amount of time it takes for something to happen from a kind of computational process perspective, these things happen very, very quickly. And usually the weakest link is the time it takes to get from the device through whatever network exists to some core. Increasingly, the things we're asking of our edge devices can't tolerate that latency. Thus, this need for the hardware that we're seeing rise up. And I mean, it was ARM versus Intel stuff a few years ago, and now, I mean, how many of the big internet players are developing their own custom silicon right now?
Yeah, so between AWS, Google Cloud, Microsoft, all of them are Facebook Meta. They talk about this. Matter of fact,
or is it Meta Facebook? I don't
know. That's a good question. I got to put my AR goggles on to figure that one out. But this ability to cut costs, but also, NVIDIA has a 52-week lead time to get their biggest GPUs. Right. So Meta talked about how they're redistributing, and they're sold out. And Meta is talking about how they're redistributing their networks and systems so that they can do more AI on the edge of their own data center. So the edge.
So the success of the semiconductors is kind of causing them to be, disintermediated. Yeah. It's an interesting concept. You also can imagine that the AI software, the software that's using the AI, is going to figure out what the use cases will be, so that it can sort of start some of that compute or make that compute available on the edge with a prediction of what's going to be needed, so we can get a head start on some of those things.
Okay,
not unlike when you're doing a search right now, or even typing on your phone, and it starts to correct before you're even done typing the word. It's that same kind of predictive model.
We need to break the third wall and bring our production people out and talk about kind of the AI that's happening for this production to happen, like Correct. Balancing across 5G, Wi-Fi providers to bring this pretty well uninterrupted live stream from Las Vegas.
Yeah, how does that happen? It's a mystery to me.
Well, a fantastic team is making it happen.
That's true.
But as we go forward too, I wonder if that introduces the possibility of some of the companies that have done so well, specifically NVIDIA, but others, getting work on the edge, getting the chance to make different kinds of semiconductors and get into other kind of businesses, like we've seen so many of the big, compute names of yore get really involved in this business of making products.
I'm excited for our sister company, Signal 65, to explore some of these topics. They're looking into AI PC. They're looking into NPUs versus GPUs, the use cases. What can do consumers need to go out and buy a new PC to take advantage of these services, or can they use the existing things that they have, like, kind of separating all of the things that we have going on at CES? You talked about the number of exhibitors on the show floor. What really matters?
Yeah.
I think we're also starting to see different kinds of devices that we wouldn't expect, in the same way that we're seeing, devices that are connecting to your home Wi-Fi system, like, I don't know, humidifiers or random things like that. You're also going to start to see, we're seeing it on the show floor today of AI showing up in these random devices that will make them just run more efficiently, even if it's yanking the compute that's done on the cloud into the device. It is an AI-powered moment on the edge, even though the compute's not happening there.
Right, I mean, the edge these days can be your refrigerator, your oven, your microwave,
right.
your air conditioner. We have these expectations that the connectivity is just going to be there, it's going to work.
I have to say that after so many years of being at these shows and having them talk about dumb stuff like the screen that's going to be on my refrigerator to let me connect to the internet that was ill-conceived at that time, now there's some stuff that does start to make sense, where they're interacting with information that's actually functional for those devices, not trying to recreate like an iPad experience
I want one now.
on your toaster oven.
I saw one in the AWS experience, and now I want one of those connected refrigerators.
That was really cool.
It was that, frankly, it was that I trusted that what they were saying they could do, I know that, that can be done now. Where 5 years ago, it didn't make sense. And so we are in the midst of this revolution that's part of the evolution. And so I think people are believing the hype now in a way where people will put their dollars towards things.
Yeah, so a practical thing. Can I go to my refrigerator and say, based on the ingredients inside of my refrigerator, what can I make? Like a couple of years ago, that would be far-fetched, and we never think about it. It's now possible with hot dog, not hot dog. I can bring that AWS reference up. Hot dog. Now that feature now has a function. Hot dog, not hot dog.
It's a fascinating time too, though. I think we're going to start to see we're going to see some silly stuff that doesn't make any sense. And to me, when you usually see that stuff, it'd be some big company trying to get into a space that they weren't really there, and they would pick a show like CES and they would decide, hey, we're going to spend a fortune to present. We're still relevant. Here we are, and they'll come out with some really dumb stuff. We certainly saw some of that down there as well.
We could make a whole blooper reel on that, but it's everybody needs to be on the AI train. If you're not, it's left the station. You're too late.
So question. Did we need AI to make 5G real? Because we're talking about AI, and 5G has been the hype the past few years, and consumers are more or less shrugged their shoulders to 5G. Have we seen a combination of both 5G, edge, and AI kind of make these technologies and trends complementary?
Yes, absolutely. You guys know that I'm part of a program at Wharton where we teach CTOs about a lot of these things. And
you mentioned that.
Yeah, I mentioned it. I mentioned it constantly. I mention it constantly. I know. Forgive me. But one of the big case studies that we look at in depth is Kodak. And you look at it and you go, oh, Kodak, they dropped the ball. They didn't understand the concept of disruptive technology.
You may run out of this, but I grew up in Rochester, New York, and watched the end of Kodak, or the beginning of the end.
The more you look into it, the more disheartening it is, because in fact, they knew what was going on and they did everything right. But
they were here at Comdex showing off stupid stuff in my lifetime.
But all of those things did converge. Those things converged after they made the attempt to make the transition to digital. So if you don't have that kind of connectivity that 5G allows, then you can't really deliver the promise of the edge. If you don't have the things that you want to do at the edge, you don't really care about 5G. So no, I think it's a great point. Not coincidentally, MWC is coming up in a bit.
Mobile World Congress?
Yeah, Mobile World Congress. Yeah, I think it's officially only at MWC.
Well, there we go.
Yeah.
655 Live will be there.
I'm all for it.
My wish granted.
Don't spoil the big surprises. But that'll be really cool. Speaking of really cool, who's really cool? Diana Blass is really cool, and she's talking about some really cool stuff right on the show floor.
Hey everybody, we're inside Frore's booth here. This is a CES Innovation Award winner, providing a technology that many of us don't often think about, but plays a huge role in all the devices we're seeing here at the show. I'm joined by Seshu here, the founder of the technology. Tell
Hi,
us more
guys.
about what you're bringing to market.
Sure. So we are Frore Systems, and we've developed the world's first solid-state active cooling chip. What we do is provide a completely new revolutionary thermal solution. Typically, computing devices generate a lot of heat, and in order to remove the heat, people use very conventional solutions like heat sinks, vapor chambers, and fans. But those are all pretty old technology. One could say more than 100-year-old technology. So what we have done is actually produced the world's first chip, solid-state active cooling chip. This completely replaces all the old traditional thermal solutions like heat sinks and fans, and does the job of cooling computing devices by just using a chip. This is the AirJet Mini. It's only 2.5 millimeters in thickness, and this can remove 5 watts of heat. In fact, this has another party trick to it, and that is very high back pressure. Back pressure is important because when you have computing devices and this chip is operating in a computing device that's very small, you have a lot of resistance for airflow in the channel. And high back pressure helps you to be able to ensure peak performance even in a very constricted channel. For example, the amount of back pressure this produces is equivalent to what a fan of this size would be required to produce the same amount of back pressure.
Well, let's get a look at some of the devices back here where you're showing how this power works. And it's amazing how many different types of devices you have with this technology built in.
Here's one of the commercial products that's currently in the market today that's using AirJet. This is an ultra small mini PC. And the manufacturer of this mini PC is Zotac. They had a huge problem when they were building this mini PC because of the size of the PC, they found that the processor can only run at 2 watts of power, even though the TDP of the processor is 7 watts. So by adding 2 AirJet Minis inside, without changing the size of the device, we're able to help the CPU operate at full 7 watts in a sustained fashion. So we were able to improve it by 3.5 times the performance by adding 2 AirJet Minis into this ultra-compact mini PC.
Great. Okay, and then over here we have the type of laptop I have an edit on, and let me tell you, it does heat up, so I could really use a device like this. This is the MacBook Air M2 15-inch. Tell us about how you're using your chip inside this laptop.
Sure. So the MacBook Air 15-inch is perhaps the world's thinnest laptop and is famously fanless. Because it's thin, there isn't enough room to put a fan in there. But the downside of that is that even though the processor in this MacBook Air 15-inch is a very powerful processor, Apple Silicon M2 processor, because it's fanless, the processor throttles. The device gets very hot, but in spite of the device getting hot, the processor throttles. So you lose 30–40% performance because of the thermal limitation of the MacBook Air. So what we've been able to do is, because our chip is very thin, it's only 2.8 millimeters in thickness, we were able to put our chips, 3 of them, inside the MacBook Air in the same form factor. There is a 3.3 millimeter gap inside the MacBook Air between the back cover and the keyboard. And that's enough for us to be able to insert 3 AirJet Minis inside the MacBook. And we were able to deliver the full M2 processor performance. So we were able to show that by putting 3 of these AirJet Minis inside the MacBook Air 15-inch, you can match the performance of the MacBook Pro. So you don't have to buy a thicker, noisy, more expensive MacBook Pro. You could just put 3 AirJet Minis inside a MacBook Air and get a super slim device that's silent but delivers the same performance.
So I do want to ask you about the market rollout here. Is this something that would be on the consumer to install, or do you work with partners who then outfit the laptops to bring them to market with these chips, or is this something that Apple would even put into its laptops? How do you roll it out?
This product that we have shown here, the commercial product, the Zotac Mini PC, is something we worked with the manufacturer. The integration of the AirJet Minis into the device is not trivial. So this is something that has to be done by the manufacturer as part of their manufacturing process. Retrofitting is possible, as we've done here, but this is only for demonstration purposes. We wouldn't recommend the consumer doing that. So we work with device manufacturers and engage with them very early on in their design cycle to make sure that when they design the product ground up, They're doing that with the AirJet Mini capabilities in mind, so they get the best performance, and also they're able to produce devices that are really thin and light and mobile, but yet delivering high performance.
Right, and we were talking about earlier how consumers are just demanding so much more from their devices today, all types of devices, as we look to embed AI onto a device. Now, over there you have smartphones. Let's go take a look at that over there right now.
Here's a demo we have of a smartphone that we've rigged up with the AirJet Mini, and we're able to improve performance by 40%. Because smartphones also have the same problem. The processors in these devices are very powerful nowadays, but because of the limited thermal performance of the smartphone, the processors are massively throttled. So by adding AirJet Mini, you can improve the performance by 40% of an existing processor.
40%, that's a noticeable impact for sure in terms of what you can accomplish.
Another area where we're finding that we can make a big difference with our solid-state active cooling chip AirJet Mini is SSD. Nowadays, SSD memory, solid-state memory is becoming more and more important in computing devices. And in order to ensure high performance, the standards have evolved to PCI 4 and PCI 5, and also in terms of peripheral connections to things like Thunderbolt 3 and Thunderbolt 4. They actually support very high bandwidth of read and write into the NAND memory. But because of thermal issues, very often the speed at which you can read and write is massively throttled. Here's an example of a SSD accessory connected with Thunderbolt. What we are finding is that as is, the bandwidth is reduced by 66% because of thermal. By adding AirJet Mini inside the same accessory, you can actually realize the full performance. So without AirJet, it throttles to 1 gigabyte per second. And by adding AirJet, you can get the full 3 gigabytes per second performance for the bandwidth of read and write into SSD memory.
All right, and lastly, you have, slightly out of the box from all the devices here, lighting, which you think about all the, smart city applications going up, or even just the transitions that consumers are making in their own homes with their lights to LED to be more sustainable. How are you helping these devices become more sustainable and efficient?
Well, that's the thing, right? It's not just computing devices that have heat issues. There are all sorts of devices in the world, and here's a good example. This is the LED light. This is an architectural LED light, which is a very high performance light, produces beautiful white light, and it's recessed in the ceiling. And it's recessed in the ceiling where, you got all sorts of insulation in the ceiling. And when you do that, in order to keep the LED light cool, they end up having to use a very big case, metal case, and inside the metal case, on top of the LED light, they have a massive heat sink. That's what it takes to remove the heat that is produced by the LED. Now, we can actually eliminate all of that by just replacing with 2 AirJet Mini. So you can reduce the volume, as you can see, by 90%, and you can reduce the weight by 72% for the solution. So you can deliver the same LED light performance in a much thinner and lighter form factor by using AirJet Mini compared to the conventional solution.
Wow. Well, it's certainly interesting to see just how big this market is by looking at all the devices around this room. What do you hope is your big differentiator in the cooling technology space?
Well, what we have done is one of a kind. There hasn't been any innovation in thermal in a century. So what we have done is actually produce the world's first solid-state active cooling chip. And in order to do that, we had to actually build this from scratch using new materials, new design techniques, new manufacturing processes, and bring it to fruition and to high volume production. And that's what we've done. And we are really happy with the response we are getting from the industry, because this solves a major pain point in computing and even non-computing devices. And we think that we've come up with a very unique way of solving the problem that's a real problem and is causing a lot of lost productivity and performance.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. It was great to meet you and see all your technology in action. And everybody can stay tuned for more coverage like this from the show.
All right, that's super cool stuff from the floor of CES. And hey, we've got a whole lot more, not least of which one of the advantages of doing 6.5 Live is that we're live and we can actually get to some breaking news. There's a huge technology story brewing right now coming out of Silicon Valley. We're going to have that story when 6.5 Live continues.
You have a drone here with a LiDAR solution built on top.
Yeah.
Now the LiDAR is a little bit different than what we're accustomed to seeing.
Yeah, the LiDAR is different because this one is using a green laser and it can map into the water, down to the topography, underwater topography basically.
I thought all LiDAR though could see through dark conditions, and so you're saying that the other types of LiDAR couldn't see through water?
Yes, right. Usually the traditional LiDAR that's used on cars or different topographic LiDAR, they use near-infrared. But the near-infrared laser is just stop on the water surface. And this one is using the green lasers that can penetrate the water surface down to the ground underneath the water.
Yeah. Well, the big talk, I guess the big debate with LiDAR is how expensive it is, so I can only imagine how pricey something like this is.
You're right, it's very expensive. But it's a very good value for money because here we are bringing a new tool that is bringing unserved needs today, because there's no other solution to map the very shallow area, which could be shallow rivers, but also the very shallow coastal area where you cannot send a boat and a sonar to map. This is where the sweet spot for the sensor is.
So, I mean, the reasons for wanting to send a boat to those shallow areas, I mean, paint pictures of use cases where this could make a dramatic impact.
Yeah, exactly. Especially because of the rising sea level that we all aware of is producing some coastal erosion, and this is, changes to the area that we need to map in order to address and mitigate the risks associated to this new erosion. Sometimes houses are built very close, and a lot of things like infrastructure are built to mitigate the erosion, and we need to map this to assess the evolution of this area.
Right. Well, data is the new oil, so you're just helping us get that precious data that otherwise is very hard to get.
Exactly, very precious data.
And we're back with 6.5 Live from the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas. This live show is a lot of fun, not least of which because there's breaking news, and I promise you we're going to get to some breaking news in a little bit. But before we do that, I want to go back down to the floor. Diana's got a really, really interesting look at the very latest from the Consumer Electronics Show. Diana?
Hey everybody, I'm back on the show floor, this time at the Aria, checking out another location here at CES, and well, look at who I ran into.
Imagine that.
Dave Scholl, the President of Workforce Solutions
That's right.
at HP.
That's right. It's great to see you.
Want to go for a walk?
Let's go for a walk.
All right,
go explore
let's
the show.
go. Let's explore. I haven't seen the Aria yet. I'm excited to see what's around.
It's amazing. There's all sorts of vendors in all sorts of different places. HP's a couple floors up.
Oh, well, we have to make our way towards that then.
Absolutely. Let's head on up. Let's head on up this way.
Well, so tell me, what are you sharing at this year's show?
So we got all sorts of exciting announcements tied to AI PCs, of course, right? Putting NPUs into some of our new PCs and new gaming devices that are coming out. And I'm running Workforce Solutions, so I'm excited about what we can do for our corporate customers. There's some cool stuff, right? The world's changing, again.
Again, I know, that's very true, but we talk so much about this PC revolution and how people are using PCs differently, but we're also working differently. So what is that, what do people want out of their PCs today when it comes to the enterprise use cases?
People just want stuff to work, right? I mean, if you talk to employees about what's going on, it's like, I don't know if I'm going to be in a Starbucks or if I'm going to be sitting here on the show floor trying to get a coffee between meetings. I just want stuff to work. And so we have this concept we call digital friction, right? Minutes of digital friction, and I hate digital friction. So how do we make sure that we get rid of all that for our customers? That's the core question from our customers.
And how do you do that?
How do we do it? Wow, okay, that's a whole nother interview. But we talk about things that, moments that matter. Imagine if you go into the office for the first time. How long does it take you to get set up with a hot desk? Or you try to launch a new Poly meeting, or Zoom or Microsoft, how long does that take? The more time you're sitting there wasting, right, that's digital friction. So HP, we come in, we monitor it, we use AI to find the problems before they arise, and then we fix them ahead of time. And then that's kind of the magic that we're all about. So it's pretty fun.
And so when we think about keeping things on device and working in the cloud, how does that work into this process?
Oh boy. So a lot of our customers are saying, okay, HP, what are you doing, right? We got these amazing, beautiful large language models. Now, how do I use them on my PC? How do I use my private data on a workstation or my private data on a PC? And when do I decide what goes in the cloud and what sits here at the edge? And so we have an amazing workstation team, and they're building sort of these we talk about AI Studio that builds sort of these orchestration layers to say, okay, this belongs in the cloud, this belongs in the PC, this is where you get the security, the privacy, the latency that you want. And so it's a lot of fun. But that's again, our customers are saying, HP, can you hold my hand, right? Not hybrids world, the world's crazy, we have thousands of customers. PC AI world is crazy, right? Thousands of customers. Okay, how do we pull all that together?
That's true.
Pretty fun.
It was interesting. Yesterday, Pat Moorhead, the founder of 65 Media, CEO of More Insights and Strategy, held a roundtable panel discussion with many leaders in the PC space. Alex Cho was there, along with many competitors like Lenovo. Right. And it's interesting how different vendors are working together, but also obviously are selling very similar solutions. So I'm curious to learn more about HP's differentiators in this space.
So I think what we like about HP is that HP only focuses on gear for employee productivity. So PCs, printers, #1 in the world. With the Poly acquisition, which is obviously near and dear to me, right? I think #1 in the world when it comes to collaboration. And so we're not focused on cloud enablement. We're focused on what sits at the edge, what sits in the workstation, and making sure that the employee is as productive as possible. And so because we don't have these other distractions, we're kind of all in on solving those issues.
So what's on the agenda for you at this show? That you just got here, so you're wide awake. Wow. You're also on Pacific time, not like me, East Coast.
You seem to be doing okay.
I am,
Lots of coffee for all of us.
Is the secret out? But yeah, tell me about what you hope to share with people here at CES over the next few days.
So the first thing I did is I toured our amazing print room with all of our different printers, all the stuff that Alex has from a PC point of view, all the solution offers that we have. I mean, that was my wake-up call at 7 this morning. That was a lot of fun. Since then, I've talked to a lot of partners, our sales teams, talked to investors, right? Of course, it's Vegas, so you got to have some good food and hang out and just see people. And then I come from the media space, so all around here there are media companies, and so lots of friends from media, tech, and it all blends together here at CES.
Yeah, and so when you talk about your customers, what kind of customers are you serving today? There's so many different use cases out there, and I think especially you have a large partner community who also looking to tailor their solutions to these customers. So tell us more about the, your market.
So we have 150,000 customers that service our commercial offers, right? And then we sell directly to some of the Global 2000 as well. And so it ranges from a 5-person mom and pop to 100,000 employees, right? And so that's actually fun. So how do we make sure that we can sell a sophisticated, customized solution to 100,000 employees, and also something that's easy for a small startup to use as well, right? And so all this kind of comes together here, which is pretty cool, right? Everyone needs to print, everyone needs a PC, everyone needs to have a video conference call.
Yeah.
And so HP is there to solve it all.
It really is fascinating to dive into these topics. Printers, PCs, they've been around forever, but now PCs are getting, smarter. I know, honestly, I find it, all these things, people used to think that PC would be dead, right? And now it's here and bigger than ever, and we're relying on printers more than ever. So it's just interesting to see how we're still relying on, bigger devices, so to say.
Some things don't change, right? We talk about the workforce, the people, right? The team. We talk about the workspace, and then, the workflows. And some things don't change. And there's printers, and there's digital, and AI makes it all magically better. We think, we hope, right?
Yeah.
But the fact is, it's all kind of the same. We're all trying to get work done. We're trying to be productive, and we hate digital friction. And so how do we kind of solve all that and make sure that people are enjoying their jobs and working in Starbucks or at home? I got 2 kids, the dogs, gotta get rid of all that noise and be productive. So.
Yeah, well, I will allow for you to be productive now by leaving you alone.
My pleasure. Wonderful to run into you.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time, and everybody, stay tuned for more coverage here from the show.
And we are back with more 6.5 Live action here in Las Vegas at CES 2024. One of the biggest, most exciting things we've seen here I mean, you hear about the gadgets, the TVs, the cars, but PCs are back, baby. And Windows PCs, AI PCs, and I can't think of a better guest to have on here. Matt Barlow of Microsoft. How you doing, my friend?
I am good, Pat. Good to see you. Good to be here at CES.
So isn't it great? And you know, both you and I have both lived through all these super cycles, whether it was like PC for internet and Wi-Fi, multimedia, desktop to mobility, and then thin mobility. And it's just like, here we are with AI PCs. Pretty exciting.
The word super cycle is it. I mean, I can't think of a more exciting category right now than the Windows PC, especially when you're talking about AI PCs coming in and all running Copilot experiences. Everybody wants it, everybody's talking about it, and I tell you the benefits to productivity, creativity, connecting with people you care about, and searching in new ways, there's nothing better than Copilot.
Yeah, and what's interesting, I was on a panel with Pavan, with Microsoft, your cohort there, and the cool part is you saw OEMs on stage, HP, Lenovo, and Dell, that spend 364 days a year beating each other up, trying to build markets, but they were all on stage because they believe in the ecosystem. They need to come together, right, with Microsoft to build this. And the thesis, I think we both agree, and I called it on stage yesterday too, we are going to have a super cycle. Here's when it's going to be and why, but the waters all the boats rise. Right? That's kind of how this works, right?
Yeah, that is the unique thing about the Windows ecosystem, and Microsoft, leading it, along with other great brands that you talked about, HP, Dell, Lenovo, Surface. I mean, just great brands that are bringing this stuff to market. And when our ecosystem gets behind something, like we're behind with Copilot and AI PCs right now, magic happens. And to hear people and what they want to build and the demand that they're seeing, and to see the experiences we have with Copilot and software marrying up to some of the hardware innovations in silicon, and even the key, it feels like the beginning of a new era of the PC around AI, and Windows and Microsoft have it.
Yeah, and I love the physical instantiation of the Copilot key, and Microsoft doesn't make changes like that very often. I mean, once every 10 years or something like this. So, and it's not just because, I mean, it's mirroring the two, right? It's big, it's valuable to consumers, it's valuable to business customers, and marrying that together with a physical instantiation, I think is super important. So, I want to ask you about Surface. How is Surface taking advantage of the AI-ness here?
Surface is the product that's built by Microsoft, specifically for Microsoft experiences. So we are right at the center of it with these things, along with a lot of great OEMs. And when you look at some of the great experiences that we're going to be bringing out, especially you think about now, we've got Copilot in Windows helping you be more productive. Copilot in Microsoft 365 helping you get more things done. Copilot in Designer helping you create with your own words. The experiences are going to show up great on Windows 11. And we want Surface, again, to be one of those great brands where those surfaces shine through for people. And I think you're seeing that today, where just tens of millions of people are using Copilot every single day.
So what are they telling you about the experience, and what dynamics, like what are they doing? Are they happy, or are they using their PCs more? What are you seeing up front?
Yeah, so the thing that's neat about what Copilot brings is that it's going to be unique for lots of people, but we're seeing distinct themes. And the theme that we're seeing right now is about 80%, and a little north of that. Actually, once they use Copilot one time, say they're never going to live without it. They're just never going to live without it. 75% of them are saying they're more productive because of it, and their work quality is better. What they're really doing is you're creating a draft faster, right? Easier. You can change the tone of a note or a mail and get it just right. If you're looking for an image and you can't find it on the web, you can create it with your words. I mean, Pat, this stuff is super exciting. The thing that I like using most, and again, this is just my own personal thing, is I miss a lot of meetings, or I get distracted in meetings. And we're finding people who use Copilot, especially in Teams with summarization, can catch up on meetings they missed or didn't pay attention to 4 times faster than they typically would have before.
Yeah, so n equals 1, n equals 2 now, right? Summary is key, and whether it's summarizing a Word document, a web page, a PDF, I'm all about summary. Not that I don't read long stuff. I mean, my company writes long research papers, and I've written a couple too, but summarizing things at my point in what I do is super important. And I have to admit that when I need a graphic for something, I mean, I went out on Copilot and created a graphic for the next family vacation, which was, hey, we're going to go to this city, and city. Create an image that represents all three cities. I think it put Eiffel Tower next to Big Ben, anyways, the creativity I'm pretty excited about too, because I lack that. And if Copilot can help anybody like me who really isn't that creative, I think, they're going to be all in.
It's awesome. And like you say, if you haven't tried it yet, you got to try it. You just have to, and it's available even on Windows 10 PCs right now. So get into Copilot, try it for the experiences. Summary and image creation in particular, I love, but there's so many other great capabilities in it.
So Pavan was on stage yesterday at the Intel event, the AI PC event, and he said some really great stuff that talked about operating system integration, big NPUs. He was talking about the future and what to expect. And it was funny at the very end, after he said, I'm like, listen to what he said and replay what he said. We know the awesomeness that's there today, but think about what could be next. So what is next? And maybe taking what Pavan said and equate that down to maybe experiences or what it means to the ecosystem.
The thing I love about what we're doing right now is when we announced the Copilot capabilities and really focused in on the one application you can get to, unlocking all of the AI capabilities and the stuff you use every day. Windows, Microsoft 365, Bing, Edge, Teams, more applications coming. That then hardware begins to catch up. The hardware key, I think, being able to invoke that and putting it at people's fingertips, the first time we've ever changed any key on the Windows PC in 30 years is amazing. But the real innovation is coming with silicon integration and optimization of Windows for that particular silicon. And when Intel and AMD and Qualcomm start talking about AI PCs, the thing they're talking about isn't the CPU. CPU is super important, powerful, getting better all the time. It isn't even the GPU, graphic performance, awesome, getting better all the time. It's this advent of the NPU. The NPU is the thing you're going to want to get. It's going to fire up these AI experiences that are here today and are still coming in the future in ways that don't tax the CPU, don't tax the GPU, and extend your battery life. And if the thing that I love when we've seen that before is when we run a Windows Studio Effects. And if you're running Windows Studio Effects with an NPU, your CPU and GPU aren't taxed at all. You can keep having that Teams call, and you can still do really productive stuff on a thin and light PC. That's just the beginning. These new experiences that are going to keep coming out for AI, and they're all going to be driven by Copilot, are going to be better on PCs with an NPU. NPUs are great today. They're going to get even better in the future.
No, I'm super excited about that. And I'm looking at this in terms of 6-month increments of goodness. And when's the last time you knew every 6 months something incredible was going to come out? And some people are like, well, just wait. I'm like, no, because you're getting awesome today. And you could wait around forever, but people need to get in now, get the experience, and just know that each generation, kind of like technology, is going to get better, right? So, Matt, I really appreciate your time, and I'm super excited about what Microsoft is doing in Windows and enabling the ecosystem, and with Surface. I cannot wait to see a Microsoft designed Surface fully around Copilot and what you're going to do with that in the future. So, thanks for coming out.
It's going to be a great future for sure.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So folks, thank you for tuning in. You heard it straight. We talked to Intel today. We talked to Microsoft today about AI PCs and what the future holds. Thanks for tuning in. Take care.
So continuing our tour here at CES Unveiled, getting a look at more mobility trends, let's take a look at what's happening in the autonomous space. Cars don't exactly need to be autonomous with a device like this. HL Mando, I'm learning more with Yunsum Lim. Tell us about what you got here.
Yeah, nice to meet you. HL Mando is just a component company. So we have the motor-driven technologies and also autonomous driving technologies such as the sensors, the LiDAR, radar, and camera systems. Based on that, we are developing the autonomous driving parking robots. So it has the 90 millimeters height, so it can cover all vehicles, including the super luxury vehicles. And those robots can utilize this in current building parking lot or the big-sized department store or airport parking lot systems. And that it increases the parking spaces about 30%.
Now, is this deployed anywhere right now, or is it still in test phase?
This year, we have the pilot project with the parking agency.
Tell us about the demand for something like this. You mentioned some venues, airports as an example. Is that one of the top trending areas you see for an investment like this?
So at the moment, we are discussing using this with the big parking agencies. Those companies provide their services to the airport or department store or big-sized building. And then if those parking agencies using these robots, then they have a benefit over 30% the efficiencies.
What was the benefit of using LiDAR here? Because that is kind of controversial. It's expensive. Some people say you can do the job with just cameras. What do you think?
That means that does not need any the human driving. So drivers does not need park his vehicle not anymore. Just take off the vehicle and drop it. And then this robot's moving those vehicles to the appropriate parking lot.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, let's continue our tour.
All right, we're back at 6.5 live here at the Consumer Electronics Show. You just heard so much about what's going on with Microsoft and Microsoft Copilot. And trust me, it's really interesting stuff like you couldn't imagine before. With a little bit more on that is Diana from the floor of the Consumer Electronics Show.
All right, so a big takeaway from CES so far is that we're in the midst of a PC revolution, and it's no surprise that it's really because of AI. Here to tell us more about how Intel is driving more AI into a Windows device is Daniel Rogers.
Hi, great to be here.
Thanks for joining me. So you are partnering with Microsoft here, helping Copilot to be built front and center into a device for users.
Yeah, that's right. So today we're happy to share some of our latest Core Ultra systems, which are our AI-infused hardware that we're bringing to the market for the first time. And obviously one of the premier AI players is through our partnership with Microsoft. So Microsoft just recently announced the first Copilot key, which is a physical key on the keyboard that you'll be able to see here today that opens up the Copilot experience to the cloud directly in the desktop.
A lot of people have been talking about the placement of this key. It's right by the start button. Talk about what that means for what consumers want out of their PC today.
Yeah, well, I think one of the challenges of AI is getting that incredible capability in the cloud, like more accessible for everyday users, right in your notebook. We're doing that in the hardware, and Microsoft is now working with us here to bring it to the physical key in the keyboard, and we're introducing that with Core Ultra. So if you take a look here, you'll see that we're able to do things like create generative AI. You'll see some prompts that we've used to create nice images of the Vegas Strip. You can also use Copilot to reference system functions. So things that you'd like to do, like go into a dark mode or go into a focus mode. You can now do that simply through a prompt, an AI-based prompt, rather than digging through a complicated menu.
So when you think about the enterprise, how can they benefit from technology like this? Even for developers, can they further develop on a solution like this?
Yeah, so for professionals, this is like autocomplete for productivity, right? This is the ultimate productivity hack. And obviously, if you're a commercial user, right, you want that right built into Windows. So we're super happy to partner with Microsoft to help make that happen here. And then for developers, you've already seen many examples of being able to generate code, or at least start your code through generative AI in the cloud. Now you can do that right in the desktop.
Great, okay. Well, this is just one demo here on display inside the Intel booth, and we'll have a lot more to share with you as the show rolls on.
All right, we are back 6.5 live from the Consumer Electronics Show, and I'm so glad we're doing this live because we've got news, big news out there that Hewlett-Packard is acquiring Juniper in a multi-billion-dollar deal that is shaking Silicon Valley. Now, Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, HPE, let's remember that Hewlett-Packard split up into two pieces, probably 6-7 years ago. So joining me right now on the panel to help discuss what this means, because I think it means a lot. Keith Townsend's here, Lisa Martin's here, Dave's here as well, Dave Nicholson. So Dave, let me start with you. HPE has been doing really well lately. I had them on my Drill Down podcast recently, and they've got a lot of things going for them, but this is a really big, expensive deal. It seems like it's coming out of nowhere.
Yeah, reportedly $14 billion. My first thought was, I think that they could have gotten them for $13 billion, and some heads should roll. But having said that,
apparently they couldn't because they didn't.
It's clear that this is all about, what are the two letters?
AI.
AI. And you know, we've been talking all day about core, edge, Internet of Things. Keith was talking about the idea of latency and what can you do here versus what needs to be done there. HPE sees the writing on the wall. They have to have solutions.
Well, it's super interesting to me because they do have a lot of workloads in their data centers running AI workloads. They talked a lot about that in the last conference call. But they also already have a big play in networking that's one of their fastest growing businesses as well. And Keith, we were talking about this before, that here, this might, you hear Juniper and you think of the networking competitor to Cisco from the 90s, if you're old, like me. But in fact, there's an important underlayer at Juniper of AI.
Yeah, you look at
their
logo is
right.
Juniper powered by Mist AI.
Yes.
What is Mist AI? It is their wireless play, their enterprise IT wireless play. If you've ever been on a video conference call and you're connected to your Wi-Fi and people ask you, well, plug your physical Ethernet cable up. Who does that anymore, right? And Juniper has kind of mastered this capability of support engineers, customers basically calling in, what's wrong with my video? And it troubleshoots the AI.
And the answer is supplied by the AI, the
exactly.
Mist AI.
The Mist AI.
And so here Juniper, here HPE is acquiring essentially a genie to help explain why something's not working in all the systems for all their customers. Interestingly, kind of bridging the old HPE gap between kind of consultants and hardware and software and networking.
Corey, you mentioned Cisco, and so one of the things I can't help but wonder is, if I'm an HPE Cisco customer, what happens to me now?
Wow, I think the answer to that is easy. GreenLake. Like, you know, if you follow the space at all, HPE is all about their cloud consumption model, consuming
and
things.
Is their cloud business.
And so, you know, we bring in, Juniper is still very strong in the data center. And I've talked to customers already, and they're excited about the idea of consuming their data center networking as GreenLake, as a service. So, you know, Cisco has to be kind of scratching their head looking at it, because HPE has never really been serious about data center networking, and Juniper is very serious about data center networking.
Yeah, and it also comes at a time we haven't seen a lot of big tech mergers through this period when we've seen sort of a lot of tech layoffs. When you look at the employment reports from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, what we've seen is actually the weakest, or sorry, Department of Labor Statistics, we've seen the weakest area in all of the otherwise fantastic employment numbers is information, which is tech. And yet here we see bankers going to work to do a deal like this, making a lot of money with this because of AI, the same thing everyone's talking about here at the Consumer Electronics Show.
Does that mean that it will be successful? I think the jury has yet to decide.
Oh, I was getting texts from a Wall Street analyst about this, saying this is going to be a disaster. There's no way they can pull this off. I think Antonio Neri is fantastic, and I think he actually might have some success because he's had so much success at HPE already.
Yeah, I don't know if they've had a bad acquisition in the past. In his tenure, Cray Computers.
Right. Cray's a fantastic example of a thing that people thought was a really dumb move, and it's absolutely powered their business for GreenLake.
I'm curious to see the impact that this is going to have on the networking industry as a whole. What are some of the things that you guys think right now could be some of the significance that shakes down from this?
Well, obviously HPE, huge in the server space, not just in the enterprise IT space, but also providing servers to the big cloud providers, networking, compute, AI, all tied to the hip. You need to be able to get information from GPUs to CPUs across the entire data center. HPE is in a unique situation now, and they have an end-to-end portfolio that threatens the rest of the networking industry.
And they're still going to partner with Cisco. There's
Absolutely,
no question.
no
It's
question.
the co-opetition thing to answer your earlier question.
Now, reportedly an all-cash deal. We'll see if it was. When we went on the air, I didn't see if it was a. There was no SEC filing yet, so that would surprise me if it really is an all-cash deal. They might have to lever up for this. It'll be interesting to see how this works. But it is a big bet for HP. I'm so glad we are all here to talk about this right now, right here at 6.5 Live. But before we wrap up from the Consumer Electronics Show, we do want to see what Patrick and Daniel have to say, sort of his big takeaways from the show, the most important ideas right here.
All right, well, it's been quite the show here at CES 2024, and just the way we kicked it off, we're ending it too. Hey Dan, hey Pat, how was the event for you?
Oh, it was a great event, and I think what we said at the outset was exactly what happened. I mean, this show was all about AI, whether it was AI PCs, AI in cars, AI in gadgets. It was pretty much AI everywhere. And I know this was a topic of discussion a few years ago, but it feels a lot more real this time.
Definitely. What do you think?
Yeah, it's the year of the plus. Last year was all about just AI. This year, it's how are we associating that with other topics and trends? We're seeing healthcare and wearables come back. Augmented reality. It's the energy that sets the entire 2024 tone is CES. When CES goes well, the tech industry follows. I'm bullish on that.
Great, okay, heard it here first, and now let's check in with our panel.
All right, we're back 6.5 Live here from the Consumer Electronics Show with some final thoughts from the panel, from Keith and Lisa and David. Let me start with you, Dave. You're all the way down there, way down there. Final thoughts about what we've seen from the Consumer Electronics Show in 2024.
AI. I think it's been amazing to see just how much.
Really? AI?
AI.
You hardly mentioned that in the last 4 hours.
Can I pick my check up now? Yeah, absolutely. From the IT perspective, thinking about the edge, Internet of Things, we've been talking about a lot of these smart sensors and things like that, but really smart consumer devices. This is going to be the year of a lot of people adopting things that haven't been adopted before.
Lisa?
That's along those lines that Dave just said. That's one of the themes that I've heard over the last couple of days is the consumer attitude towards AI changing a little bit. I wouldn't say it's a huge sea change, but in terms of, we talked about earlier today, a lot of the concern that's been out there, a lot of the negative press associated with AI that's been perpetuating in the media, consumers are been historically reluctant. But I think one of the things that we're hearing the last couple of days is that's changing, at least a little bit, going in the right direction in terms of consumers seeing all of the interesting applications of AI that they're already probably using and don't realize it, but also some of the new applications that are coming, that even some of the ones that have been highlighted at CES.
So I'm an infrastructure guy, and I pay attention to infrastructure. And it's all, for me, my focus has been the infrastructure for AI.
Yeah.
Semiconductors are cool again. The ability.
Who saw that coming?
Yeah, who saw that coming? Other than Dan Newman, who saw AI semiconductors being cool again. But this ability to handle the influx of the application demand. HPE, Dell, HP, Lenovo, all of these OEMs are not going to be caught flat-footed again and let what happened to them with mobile happen with AI. We've already heard the stories around AI PC. Even if there's not real use cases there, these companies are really thinking about what it will take not to be left behind.
Well, and I think, from a 30,000-foot view, what's so interesting to me, my big takeaway is just how big this show is. I mean, what do you say, 130,000 people? So 130,000 people here, the biggest crowd CES has seen since before the pandemic. What's interesting now about this, and we've kind of talked about this a little bit, is it really is the consumer leading technology, not the technology leading the consumer to what they've got. And I think back to my first experience. The first experience in my home of ChatGPT wasn't mine. And I'm the tech guy, right? The first experience was 3 of my teenagers who were still in high school a year ago, all of them using ChatGPT to cheat in their homework or whatever, write their papers. They were so cognizant about how the technology worked, how to use it and avoid getting cheated, sort of a higher level of use very early on. And I think that AI's been around forever. where machine learning has been around for a very, very long time, and yet it was this lightning bolt from OpenAI and ChatGPT that has led to all of these changes that we're seeing from the Consumer Electronics Show, whether it's stuff that's done with AI in it, or the companies that we've been talking about, some of the companies we've been talking to, like Intel and Qualcomm and others, that are starting to create new future use cases of AI all over consumer electronics. I'm so glad we could get a chance to take a look at these things. I'm so glad I could do it with the three of you. It's fun working with you guys.
Likewise.
Glad to have you here on this first ever 6.5 Live. There's more to come. And be sure to join us in June for the 2024 6.5 Summit. It's a virtual summit that you'll be able to watch the same way you're watching this, but with some of the greatest minds in technology, unlike, say, me. You'll be talking to some really smart people, some really interesting people, to get a real grasp of what's going on in this really rapidly changing world of technology in this whole new era of massive technology-driven change. We appreciate your time and thank you for joining us from 6.5 Live from Las Vegas.